Hello and welcome to the debut of Let's Talk Wrestling here on Come Waste Your Time. It's a show where we talk about wrestling. I am the debutante, Preston Black, and I am joined by my chaperone for the evening, Ben Barber.
I am a chaperone. Thank you so much. I'm excited we're doing this.
Yeah, I'm also very excited. It's a long time coming, to say the least.
So what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we're going to be talking about, thank you for asking, by the way. Tonight we're going to be talking about AEW Revolution, which occurred this past weekend. And since it is Wednesday, it's officially old news. But we're not bound by any rules or regulations here on the internet, so I figured it's still a fair game.
That is true. That is true. Good evening, Bob Laveau.
Yes,
how
good
are
evening.
you?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Are you a wrestling fan? I don't know.
Are you a wrestling fan, or are you a Ben Barber fan? Just a fan of podcasts in general? Podcasts and talk shows?
I like this thing. I don't have this.
What's this thing?
That's a you thing. Stream Elements. Captain Stick Figure is now live streaming. Anyway.
Oh yeah. That sure is. That's my my alerts. See, I'm gonna take since we're now broadcasting live on the internet via the internet. I'm gonna just take a quick second to share the link to various. Oh, there goes the sound. To the various platforms.
Right.
Ben, how's your? While I'm doing that, we'll have some small talk. How's your day been?
Long. Long. It's 10 here.
Yeah.
I know that you are a little bit further in the past than I am.
I am in the past.
I'm in the future. But it's 10 p.m. It's been a long day. It started at like 7 a.m. doing this stuff. And here we are, but I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
It was a long day. It started with my uncle calling me to tell me that the water heater at my parents' house died. So
oh no,
I gotta get a new one of those, which is fun.
Yeah, that's something. Is it cold enough that you're gonna freeze your pipes or anything over there? Or
maybe.
Who knows?
Who knows, man? Who knows? I don't know.
That's great. Yeah, so I appreciate you being active late at night. It's only 7 p.m. For me, so this is a lot more manageable.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty all right.
Thank you for having me on your first ever. Is this your first ever Let's Talk?
It's my first ever Let's Talk. Yes,
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
I love it, and yeah. So,
you know what's really challenging is trying to share stream links while you're having a conversation. I realized just right now. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's great. We're doing great. Everything's great. Cool. So that's out of the way.
Fritz wants to know, what are the rules of engagement here?
The rules of engagement. It's your standard fare for the internet. But usually I think when it comes to talking about wrestling specifically, you want to jump on it while the iron's hot, as they say. That's a saying, right?
That is a saying.
Yeah,
that is definitely a saying.
It's a saying. If it applies here, who knows?
I don't know.
Clones bearded ladies are always allowed. Yes, absolutely,
yeah, for sure.
Great. So I'm finished with my side work here. So what say we jump right into it?
Yeah, let's break down what happened at AEW Revolution and what you thought of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I figure we're just gonna go match for match here. I'll sort of call the matches, do a little bit of a rundown, and then we'll discuss our thoughts.
All right. Go ahead.
So announcers for the evening: Tony Schiavone, Excalibur, your favorite commentator, and Jim Ross, everyone's favorite commentator. Kick off with Chris Jericho versus Eddie Kingston. I love Eddie Kingston. I was not previously aware of him. I'm completely new to Eddie Kingston, but I find him delightful. He works strong off the bell, right out of the gate. A really brutal looking suplex to the back of Jericho's head. This works into the story of the match as Eddie works the neck and head. After about 2 minutes, they brawl to the outside. Jericho gets a little bit of a shine there. Jericho's looking in great shape, I noticed.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Which is, I think, one of my. This is super superficial, but one of my greatest complaints has been that Jericho's been looking real doughy since he got to AEW. But I'm glad to see that he's been putting in some work in the gym. Jericho and Eddie go chop for chop, and Eddie cuts Jericho off with a thumb to the eye and a very clean looking, as you do, very clean looking DDT following that. Notice the crowd is fully behind both guys. There isn't really an obvious face or heel dynamic in this, and in fact, they're sort of both working pretty heelishly. And so it's nice because it makes it so the crowd can comfortably get behind anyone. And the match is more of a blood feud situation. Although it's not been a very long program, but this is a very personal match. So the fact that they're both sort of cheating and taking shortcuts and stuff, it works, I thought, for the story. Eddie takes a suplex off the apron to the floor, which takes an absolute age to set up. It's a really long, it's almost like a slow motion suplex. It doesn't look very good. There's no snap to it. It doesn't look dangerous at all. But they sell it like death. Let's see. Set up. Oh yeah, the commentators they put it over as an exploder, and it's the opposite of an exploder. Eddie takes an absolutely brutal suplex on his head to set up for a lion salt, but he's too far away from the ropes, and so Jericho hits it short. Excalibur immediately covers with psychology. Supposing that Jericho intentionally hit the lion salt short so that he could adjust his point of impact. And they have been sort of putting over that Jericho is targeting Eddie's orbital bone throughout the match, which I'm not sure exactly why, maybe for the Judas effect. Yes. Okay, so this was kind of funny. I noted, like her namesake, Earl Hebner, Aubrey Edwards gets into a very brief shoving match with Jericho.
Like her namesake?
So on the indies, Aubrey Edwards is goes by Girl Hebner.
There you go.
Spelled Earl, but with a G in front of it. And so Earl was always, of course, famous for getting in big shoving matches with the guys.
Yep. Yeah, I missed that.
I thought it's super quick and it didn't go anywhere. They must have been buying time for something, but I thought I was sort of looking also because I was trying to observe how obvious Aubrey made herself in the match, because that's sort of, I guess, for better or for worse, that's one of her sort of claims to fame, is that she really sticks out as a classic wrestling fan would prefer a ref not to do. I happen to enjoy it very much. But I was sort of looking out for it because I figured you would hate it if it did happen.
Why did you think I would hate it?
I don't know. It just seems like the kind of thing that you would dislike.
What is it? All right. What are the things that you think that I would dislike about it?
I find
I want to know your preconceived notions about my wrestling tastes.
I perceive you as being a bit of a purist.
Okay.
right? And so like real indie shit, I don't feel like you probably go for. In fact, you've complained privately to me that AEW has too much like indie style wrestling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not that honestly, it's I like structure and I like rules and then I like being and the reason that you have structure is to break structure.
Mhm.
And if you don't have the structure, then breaking it means nothing.
Sure.
And so I think that a lot of things mean nothing because everything means everything is whatever.
Yeah.
So, but no, a referee like being more noticeable is fine to an extent.
Sure.
To an extent, I think Justin Roberts is too much at 99% of the time. But yeah,
They put him over a lot for being an announcer.
and he puts himself over a lot too.
That's true. He's got a
Yeah,
lot of very interesting things to say and stories to tell.
sure.
Um,
Yeah,
uh, um, I was making these notes on my phone, so it's riddled with autocorrect spelling errors. Jericho kicks out of Eddie Kingston's spinning back fist, which is a big note of the match. And after that, the match really comes to a grinding halt. And both these guys appeared to be at their physical limit. They're both like real sludging around the ring and gasping for breath and everything. So
he's looking at his notes. He's
what's
only
that?
looking at he's only looking at his notes if he doesn't see the comment that's on screen right now.
Oh, what is it? What's the comment? You'll have to narrate the comments.
I'm all about any wrestling as long as it's centered around necromancy and supernatural powers.
Well, there wasn't any of that at AEW Revolution, so
Hopefully someday soon.
maybe. I mean, I didn't watch,
Hopefully,
but the House of Black was on the pre-show, and I didn't watch that, so I don't know what kind of shenanigans they got up to. But I don't think it's anything to be excited about. Eddie can't. So being at his physical limit, Eddie cannot get Jericho up for a Northern Lights bomb, and Jericho counters into a code breaker, which Eddie kicks out of. Hits a second code breaker. Jericho sets up for the Judas effect, but Eddie ducks it and hits two spinning back fists. Jericho taps to the stretch plum. After the match, Eddie waits for Jericho's handshake. Jericho, part of the build up to the match was that Jericho promised Eddie that if he were able to beat him, that he would show him that respect and shake his hand, but Jericho denies it. Which, yeah, big jerk energy. So we're looking at a possible heel turn for Jericho coming down the line. I hate the little automatic like weather and news ticker that comes up on Windows. Yes. Oh yeah, Bray Wyatt, big Bray Wyatt energy, please. So what'd you think of the match, man?
I'm a fan of both of them. I agree that I think that Chris Jericho looks a little like he looks better right now. I think that like I think that like when he came to AEW, which was God, how many 19 years ago now? He you know was playing this character of this like aging rock star who like is a god in his own mind, and I think that part of the appeal of that character was maybe letting himself go, and also any excuse to not put in that much effort would be welcome at 50 whatever years old, I'm sure. So I don't know like how much of it, but then he has been babyface for a long time and was still that. So whatever, it is what it is, but
he was still kind of playing that same character though,
Yeah.
it could have been, and it could be other things too. Like he was in great shape when he left WWE. And I feel like it's like basically the moment he started working with Kenny Omega in New Japan, he started putting on weight. So it might have been traveling. It might have just been leaning into the more like just the essence of the character as being like less clean and grungy.
it could have been anything. And I believe he had a health scare recently. I don't know any details about that, but hopefully he's doing well, and hopefully
Sure.
still a hell of an athlete no matter what. And at the end of the day, who cares? But and Eddie Kingston is great. There are some things like people are gonna hate me on this show. I cannot be a normal. I'm like, yeah, like people are going to hate me because I do not like a lot of like there are tendencies that all right, I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna come out and say it. There are
Come on, say it.
tendencies that the people have, right? Nearly everyone, not everyone, but nearly everyone that has not come from WWE at some point or NXT or whatever, right? Has like there are certain moments of it that are just sloppy, and like some people can say like that's great, they're unpredictable, it's less polished, whatever, like that's how it should be. I don't know, like I think that some things look a little sloppy and rushed and in certain spots where you're not playing for certain things, and that is something that I've seen like a lot of with a lot of people, and you don't see it as much, like I think that there's something to there should be a happy medium between all of the control in the world, like do whatever the hell you want, and here's a script and you better follow it.
Yeah.
To the line, like there needs to be a happy medium, and I don't think that either company is the happy medium, and it annoys me. Next match.
I don't know what the structure of the AEW backstage is. Obviously, in WWE, you have all these road agents milling around, and they're telling the workers, basically just almost creating the match for them, right? They have this list of spots that they have to get in, and then they're only given 10 to 15 minutes generally to get them all in. So the filling in space with their own ideas is a lot more limited, and I get the impression that they probably don't have that same strict control in AEW.
Yeah, but and whatever, like the AEW has like some of the greatest wrestlers that have ever lived backstage. Yeah. So I don't think that it's that. Like I think that it's an attitude of like we need to let them be them, and like we need to let it be authentic and whatever. And I think that like just a little bit of less is more.
Sure.
And this is not necessarily even about this match. It's just stuff that I've seen in general. Like, but I am a big fan of Eddie Kingston.
Yeah,
and obviously Jericho is Jericho.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, it's no surprise that Jericho puts on a great. I mean, it was a great match. I thought that was a great match. Yeah, but Eddie Kingston is a huge highlight for me. Basically, no matter what he's doing.
Amazing talker, just a great promo.
Oh, phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I can't even remember if I said this to you or if I said this to Georgia when we were talking privately, but Eddie Kingston he's like one of these guys that you sort of get the idea that Eddie Kingston hasn't gotten the memo that wrestling is a work.
Yeah.
Like he works so safe, but he comes off 100% convicted to whatever he's doing and saying.
Right. Which is great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. No, I have no complaints about him.
No. So moving on to the next match, we have the triple tornado. What is tornado triple threat? No, it was not. Yeah, it was a tornado. Triple threat.
Continue.
Yeah, for the AEW Tag Championships, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, no longer billed as Jurassic Express, versus the Young Bucks versus Red Dragon.
They're not Jurassic Express anymore?
They didn't call them Jurassic Express once, and I believe that's because Marco Stunt hasn't been around, and they've been hanging around with Christian instead.
Okay.
So maybe it just, I don't know. They were billed as Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. They were announced
Question for
as,
you.
yeah, go ahead.
Question for you. Does Christian need to be spending his time with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt? Does that feel like a natural fit? Like you gotta put Christian with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt. Like there's no other spot for it. He can't be by himself, and he can't be like it's a very, I don't think they were a cool thing by themselves, and him coming in was a cool thing, and it feels like a rent. Like I get Sting and Darby Allen. I get like some of the other,
Yeah.
stuff, but this just has always seemed like okay, I get him like joining with them like when he first came in, and like it made a good story for like a month, but like does everybody need to be in a faction at all times?
Yeah, it's not really the most organic thing, and I think you nailed it when you say it made sense at first, because I think they were doing sort of similar things, and it was a matter of convenience.
Yeah.
But and now and now even during this match, they talk about how much of a mentor Christian has been to Jungle Boy, but Jungle Boy was one of the four pillars, right? Like right at the beginning of AEW's existence. And so my question is, if you're putting the future of your company on his back, then does he need a mentor in Christian? Like that was long before Christian showed up, and he's been doing great. I don't know. It seems like it was just a matter of convenience when Christian first showed up, and now they just have to sort of retroactively justify it. And they also have this like obsession with mentorship. Like everyone is a mentor to someone else.
Yeah, and everyone, and like you need to know all of the allegiances, and you need to like it's a lot. It's really hard to just turn on AEW television and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and especially jarring if you're going back and forth to WWE, because they put so much effort into making sure that you can just hop in whenever.
Oh my god, they'll do too much,
yes,
to the point where it slows down the show a lot. But like, yeah,
like
there's
recapping the first hour in case you didn't see it. Like,
sometimes it's recapping the segment before the commercial break.
Yeah.
Four times. Like, what? Why? But
yeah,
it does reinforce the point. But there's not enough forward motion in WWE, and there's nothing but motion. I'm not always forward, but there's nothing but motion at all times.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So we have this triple threat tag match, and the story of the match obviously is the sort of question about the allegiance between Red Dragon, which is Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, and the Young Bucks, who are associates, but obviously they're competing now, and they've sort of been building to this sort of faction split with Red Dragon and Adam Cole and the Young Bucks, and I guess the rest of the Elite, which is really just the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, who hasn't been around since November.
Yep.
So that's really the main focus of the match. It starts off pretty good feeding into that. Jungle Boy starts off the match with Kyle O'Reilly. Pretty brief ring time, and everyone kind of gets a turn between both teams going against Jungle Boy and building that heat for that. And eventually Luchasaurus gets tagged in and completely cleans house, finishing with a big tope from Jungle Boy to the outside of the ring. Red Dragon and the Bucks tag each other in and continuously cut off the tag champions. Eventually, O'Reilly does break up a pin attempt by, I believe, Matt Jackson. And they sort of have like words about it, but then back off. But then shortly thereafter, Nick Jackson breaks up a pin attempt by Kyle O'Reilly. And so this is sort of the second act of the match, is they're sort of trading off, breaking up each other's pin. The Bucks are doing blind tags to get in, and so they're just sort of building the in-match rivalry between these two teams, and they're sort of raising the stakes up and up and up, and that tension builds. So O'Reilly breaks up another pin by the Bucks, and then they start getting in each other's faces. And despite all of this narrative that's happening, I was really pleased that it didn't really affect the pace of the match. They kept it nice and quick, but they got in the story points without things having to slow down, which is really, really nice. I observed that the crowd is still super behind Luchasaurus, which I noted because just before there was a huge Luchasaurus chant from the crowd, I started wondering, is Luchasaurus getting old? Because he was, one of the, he's an AEW original, and this is sort of like a joke gimmick that became like a meme and just kind of caught on. And it seems like it would have a shelf life, but it does not seem to have come close to hitting that shelf life yet, which I thought was very interesting. We can possibly talk about that.
Does anybody who has had a shelf life for AEW?
I guess that's true. Everyone loves everything.
Cody.
Yeah,
people hated Cody. People turned on Cody, but really, has anybody
No, AEW fans so far seem pretty happy to just accept whatever's presented to them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice, because it's like, you don't get like ironic boos for Roman Reigns every show, but also it's like, how can you tell what's working and what's not if everyone reacts positively to everything? But then I guess that just means everything is working and you're doing everything right and nothing is wrong. Ben, thoughts?
I think I think that when you have everybody saying that everything's amazing and that you're the greatest, blah 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 blah, you think that you can do whatever, and at some point someone's gonna get mad about their spot, about overcrowding, about and maybe the purchase of ROH and doing something with ROH and sending some of the wrestlers there will happen at some point, though, right? Like wrestlers like Jungle Boy who go into year 4 or 5 of being mentored by the old WWE guy, are gonna be a little upset that there's no forward progression there, there's a chance, and you don't see it right now because they're beloved and they should be because they've earned it, right? But at some point, Adam Cole, for example, I know that he just headlined this pay-per-view, but before that, right? A lot of these things, people come in, they go to the top of the card. If they don't go to the top of the card, then what are they doing? Because they were wasted in the other company, But then it's like, well, not everybody can be there, so now everybody's whatever, and then everything gets stacked and everything's whatever, and then you're going to end up with the same complaints that you had with the place that you just came from, because everything was supposed to be better and more, and everything that we do is perfect, and but tonight, for example, they put a title match on last and started it with less than 10 minutes to the hour. So is this title prestigious and important, or do you, because you have time limits. You have time limits. So if your time limits are at least 15 minutes, you need to make sure that you start that match before, or else you're cramming everything in, and then nothing means anything, and then everything becomes predictable, and then you become what you hate. And it's getting very top heavy with a lot of stars, and a lot of stars that need upward momentum constantly. And it's all good. It's all good for at least probably another 2 to 3 years. But at some point, people are probably going to be frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that checks out, and it's and you know we're getting to the time when a lot of those originals are going to be coming to the end of their contracts. So you know it's going to be interesting to see who sticks around and who doesn't.
There's something good about, like, I hope that, and I don't, is no one knows anything about Cody yet, right?
The last I heard is that Dave Meltzer is saying that they're still in negotiations with WWE, but that those negotiations have sort of
Stalled.
they're not stalled, but have slowed. I think it's the general vibe seems to be that Cody has the you know the bid and he's just mulling it over, I guess.
Yeah, and on the other hand, like, do you want to bring back that? Do you want to wait a little bit and get more of a pop in a little bit, because you just reintroduced Stone Cold this week, and the week before there was, so, like, are you trying to not overcrowd those surprises? Ronda just came back, but anyway, so my thought is, like, I really hope that he goes to WWE, because that that pathway needs to go back both ways. Because and thank God Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn did not leave for AEW, because if everyone goes to the other channel, then you get the overcrowding problem and you get all of that stuff, right? But if some of those people do go to WWE, then you have the ability to have people change every 3 years or so.
Yes.
And that's actually going to matter, because what's insane is that Kofi Kingston and Dolph Ziggler have been in the most Royal Rumbles of anyone, or like close to it, or like they're 1 and 2, and because they've been there for so long, like, so it's 2022, and they were there in like 07, 06, maybe even for Dolph. Like, that's insane. That's such a long time. Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestled from mid 1995 to 2002 regularly. 2001 regularly, right? And he was only real big from 97 to 01 ish. Like, The Rock's entire span was under 5 years. People get stale, and you have to continue. Not everybody can be the Undertaker or Chris Jericho and reinvent themselves over and over and over again. You need to have the ability to go do something, come back, and change. You would never have gotten the Drew McIntyre that you have now had he not been fired and gone away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And hopefully, like, I don't want to see people fired. I don't want to see people released. I don't want to see people do that. But I would love to see people go do their own thing and go to different places. And, like, I don't know that I'm the biggest fan of what Matt Cardona is doing right now. But I love that he's doing it, and I love that he's showing an edge, and that, so now he's building his stock, and he's the NWA champion. He's doing all of these things, and, like, he would have been lost in the shuffle at AEW.
Yeah.
And he's doing something and making a name for himself. And then, but you need it both ways. You need it both ways. And if it's not both ways, then, and WWE tries to do this with the brand split, and they suck at it. But, like, giving people fresh stories, fresh matchups, fresh everything is really important, because, you look at, like, Jericho now 3 years into AEW, and it's like, what else there's not a ton left for him to do. So does he go somewhere else? But like Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, you're like, oh, there's so many possibilities and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Jericho has to go down a level for that. And Hangman needs his time, but it's hard to have Hangman have his time if you have the other people having that. Like, having a certain amount of guys that you can build and then go do those things, I think is very important. And if you don't have that, then you're going to have guys, not necessarily them, but you're going to have guys like Jungle Boy and Darby Allin and stuff going, we're the Sammy Guevara, we're the pillars of this company. Like MJF's going to get there. MJF's going to get like, he'll be the champion. He'll be the face of the company soon enough. But these other guys are going to be like, okay, well, my stock is only rising so far. You know, someone's going to go. And then same thing in WWE, the other, but like there needs to be a trade-off. And
Yeah.
if there is, the longer that both of them will have a hot period.
Yeah.
Not that WWE has a hot period. They suck right now. Literally everything that they do sucks.
They create their own hot periods. As long as they're making money, they're fine. But I agree on principle that there should be more mobility for the wrestlers to explore those options if they're not getting what they think they are getting, especially with whatever company they're with. That the option should always be open for them to try, and raise their stock, like you said, and go elsewhere. I also hope that Cody goes to WWE. I think that would be really great for everyone.
Big Show had to turn heel and babyface and dance and do all of the weird stuff that he did for so many years of that, because his position as the giant of the company and the killer and destroyer only works for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one note, and it's, and everybody like makes fun of Vince and hates Vince for like sticking guys with gimmicks. And yeah, most of the gimmicks are terrible, but like you do need a personality if you're going to stick around for 25 years.
Yeah.
And, not everybody can be the badass.
Yeah. I think, I don't think the problem so much is the concept of sticking people with gimmicks. It's how convinced he is that he's right about stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the problem is how aggressively he sticks to a bad idea. And I mean, we've heard countless guys at this point come from WWE and tell that same story. But if that wasn't the case, I mean, I think they've got a winning formula. They just be willing to let go of it a little bit. Like you said earlier, loosen the reins, and let people flourish.
If both places could mix a little bit of what they do, it would make one fantastic company.
Right. And having people jump back and forth, I think would aid in attaining that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get back to this match. Luchasaurus gets cut off from via a Canadian destroyer, and then he gives everyone a choke slam, and delivers a standing moonsault to Matt Jackson. Jungle Boy hits a doomsday device off the ropes, which I thought was very nice, to Matt Jackson. Matt accidentally super kicks Bobby Fish, which I thought was fun because they sort of play it off as if it was like a dissension, sort of angle, but then he kind of like, hey, it was an accident, but a happy accident. And I thought that was good work. And so we get a double clothesline, a bit of a dub spot there. And Jungle Boy, I lost my place. Jungle Boy gets back in with Red Dragon. Yeah, Jungle Boy hits a shooting star press on Kyle O'Reilly while he has Luchasaurus in a guillotine headlock. I thought that was really pretty. If a little bit dangerous, but everyone was fine. O'Reilly hits Jungle Boy with the belts, but nothing comes of that. And the champions retain after that with a Jurassic Express on the books. And you got to think this
not Jurassic Express. Continue.
Yeah, right. And then my only last note is that you'd have to think they didn't do any work to move the angle forward after the match, but obviously this would be leading to the Bucks and Red Dragon,
yep,
having their feud. So in a way, the the tag champs are a little bit of a prop.
Do you get Dynamite early, or do you have to wait until the West Coast replay?
I don't watch the TVs. I don't have
Fair.
cable. I don't have cable.
Fair.
I think I could watch it on. No. I have Xfinity, and they have like their own like streaming cable service. But TNN is or TNT, TNN,
TBS
is an upgrade. I'd have to pay extra for that, which I don't really want to do.
That is fair.
Yeah, I mean,
unless the show takes off and then business expense.
Listen, if that's the case, I'm more than willing to spend time watching it. But you know, I can only afford so much wrestling. Scotty 2 Hotty and Too Cool was a gimmick I didn't like. Scotty 2 Hotty and Too Cool were some of my favorites. Georgia will attest to that. Yeah, so I thought this was good. I thought this was fine. I liked the story. Getting over the tension between Red Dragon. I'm sort of lukewarm on Fish and O'Reilly, even from NXT. I think they're good. I think they're good henchmen for Adam Cole, but on their own, I want to like them. I like their look. I think they have a good energy about them. I struggle to get into their matches.
Did you watch Kyle O'Reilly at all when he was a singles wrestler?
No.
I find it interesting when they acknowledge the other program so much, that they like it's a weird thing of like, are you saying that the other program is like canon for you, or is it bullshit and you're shitting all over it? And then, but some of it is like, you know what I mean? Like they mesh those things very strangely to me. But I like Fish and O'Reilly, and I think that it's, it's awesome that they're in a tag team, and AEW has a ton of great tag teams. So I would love to see that. It was an interesting thing where Adam Cole came in and you were like, oh, cool, he's going to be back with the Bucks and be in the elite and be whatever. And then it's like, okay, cool. No, they're completely redoing Undisputed Era.
Well, they didn't immediately start off like that because they got Adam Cole and he was just Adam Cole. Bobby Fish got signed, but he was just doing single stuff for a minute, and then he got kind of pulled into like helping like Adam Cole, if I remember correctly, like
everybody needs a buddy.
Yeah, like enlisted him for like a tag match or something. But then he kind of stuck around, and then when Kyle O'Reilly showed up, it was immediately into that. So yeah. I thought it was like a nice sort of like, oh, we weren't planning for this, but like we've got all these guys. And I think what you touched on a moment ago, I think is so different from WWE, because I think they kind of treat all of wrestling as canon, it seems like, in AEW. And whereas WWE really tends to shy away from stuff that happens outside of WWE, except to do little like wink and nods, like anytime they put like any Bullet Club guys together, and they sort of tease it, but also in a way that's almost mocking.
Yep. Sometimes that might just be the guys too that tease it.
Yeah, like they just kind of ad lib stuff like that, but then I mean they like book like Finn Balor and is had the Balor Club thing for a while.
Yep.
And then when they put the Good Brothers with AJ Styles, and they call them like what they call the OC, the original club.
Yep.
And like stuff like that. But it's like but they're kind of booked like garbage. So it's like you're just sort of trying to sell shit to people. You're not really like taking it serious.
Yes.
But yeah, I thought it was a great match. All those guys are fantastic. How do you feel about the Bucks? This is another opinion that I presuppose about you, that you wouldn't be into the Bucks because they're they do so many like high spots and there's no psychology. And maybe I don't know where I get that from, that you're so much of a purist.
I don't dislike the Bucks. I don't. I think that, like, I mean, I don't love the idol worship of like everybody that does a bunch of big moves.
Yeah.
I think
A
that's
bunch of big moves that everyone else is also doing.
yeah. So like, I think that the Young Bucks are fantastic. I think that they get diluted when everybody else on the show does the same stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, I'm like, all of it together is too much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong. The cage match a couple months ago, that everybody was like, "Oh my god, that's the greatest cage match that's ever happened ever." The tag match with them and Penta and Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I mean, ever, like, there's like, I don't know. I think that I think that, like, it's you do things and then you just overkill it by doing like 30 more things, and you always up the ante on everything that you do, and it's hard to, but like, no, there's no hate for that. And I love like what they've done with being the elite for themselves and all of those things. Like, I think that they're great.
Yeah.
And Matt's got such a good head for everything also.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like, you really don't have this company without them.
No, literally.
So
yeah.
no, they're great.
They're a lot of fun, but I agree they could. I mean, it sucks that the thing that at face glance they are sort of most famous for are things that are like totally ubiquitous especially in the independent scene. But there are really awesome like throwback rockers, Hardy Boys kind of tag team. Like their tag team wrestling is like second to none.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and I love their heel like elite gimmicks that they're doing right now. The like sort of post rockers, Shawn Michaels sort of stuff. It's fantastic.
I agree.
Yeah. So Taz comes out to join the announcing booth, which means it's time for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. We have Keith Lee, who just recently debuted, versus Ricky Starks, which my phone auto-corrected to Ricky Stakes, versus Powerhouse Hobbs, versus Wardlow, versus Orange Cassidy, versus Christian Cage. There's been some chatter on the internet about Christian turning heel as we have been approaching the pay-per-view. So I was interested to see if that had any water to it. And it didn't seem like it really did. He didn't do anything remotely heelish. So that would have been interesting, but it really wasn't. I mean, Christian almost seemed like he was just kind of a filler person in this. He didn't really do anything significant.
In this company?
In the match.
In this company?
He exists. So right away, Tony Schiavone comments that there are an awful lot of heavyweights for a ladder match, which I didn't notice, but he was right to.
Oh my God, that's the first thing that I noticed.
Oh, yeah, it didn't stick out for me until he said it, and then I was like, oh yeah, oh wow. I just sort of take for granted that like you can just kind of put anyone into a ladder match, but yeah, there's some big dudes in this match. I felt like Keith Lee was sort of presented as the favorite going into it, at least, or that might have been flavored by some of the commentary that I've seen outside of the company. But Orange Cassidy is sent out last, which I thought was an interesting choice. I don't know if
biggest star in the match
over Keith Lee.
Orange Cassidy is one of the biggest stars in AEW. He is
I don't doubt you that, but there's so much
synonymous.
excitement. I just felt like there was so much excitement around Keith Lee arriving, and he's mega over in his own right.
Overhyped.
Ouch.
Yep.
So Orange Cassidy is hilarious. That's just a solo note. Match starts off with everybody in the ring, and Cassidy rolls full across the ring and outside the other side, and the match starts sort of without him. Right away, all of the smaller guys are thrown out, and so you're left with the super heavyweights in the ring, but Cassidy gets right in there with them, and starts his lazy kick spot. Orange Cassidy tries to climb Keith Lee to get to the brass ring, and then that doesn't work out. Christian brings in the first ladder, but gets cut off by Starks. Hobbs steps over Christian and touches the ring. So Christian is lying prone on the ground in front of the ladder. Hobbs steps on his chest and then climbs the ladder, touches the ring, but Christian hits a reverse DDT off the ladder, which I thought was nice. We got great camera direction as the camera focuses on Christian setting up for presumably a spear or something. And while we're waiting for something to happen, Keith Lee just kind of rises up from the floor behind him, which I thought was very nice. This leads to Keith Lee picking up Orange Cassidy and just swinging him around to batter the other guys. After which Lee attempts to grab the ring, but he's interrupted by Wardlow. They have a standoff and then get hit with a ladder by Powerhouse Hobbs. Hobbs and Starks are left solo, are left alone in the ring on either side of the ladder. They sort of have a moment together, and then they shake hands and both race up the ladder. I thought that was a very fun spot for those guys, but they're interrupted by Orange Cassidy, who picks up the ladder and does a very slow helicopter with the ladder. So this is my favorite part. This is my favorite part of the match. So Keith Lee and Hobbs grab either side of the ladder while it's still around Orange Cassidy's neck. They pick it up, but he holds on, and then he pulls himself up and flips on top of the ladder and attempts to reach up and grab the ring, but he falls and hits himself in the nethers on the rung of the ladder. So that was a big fun spot, probably my highlight of the match. Powerhouse Hobbs delivered a very precarious delayed vertical suplex off of the ladder, which was leaning against the turnbuckle. I forgot who he did that to, but it didn't matter. We got a Starks spearing Christian through the ladder, through the rungs of the ladder, which it happened so fast I barely noticed it, but it was very nice and clean. I don't think the ladder even moved. Everyone, so at one point they stand two ladders next to each other, and everyone gets up on both of those ladders and they start sort of clamoring for the ring. And I thought they were going to do something very cool, but then they just sort of gradually, like individually, one by one, push people off, which was kind of boring. Of note, Wardlow, I guess I noted it, but it didn't end up meaning anything. Wardlow falls off the ladder and started nursing his hand, but he seems all right. I thought that was going to mean something, and it didn't end up meaning anything. So they keep teasing this tension between, not tension, but they keep teasing Hobbs, Wardlow, and Lee, the three big guys, and then not giving it to you, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Big E would be very upset about that.
Yeah, he would.
He wants that man meat.
Yeah,
slapping.
Keith Lee gave his huge Beal toss to Orange Cassidy outside to get him outside of the ring into a pile of.
Broke his arm or something?
Did he really?
Oh yeah, he was in a cast tonight.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that at all. I guess that is sort of the last thing that Orange Cassidy did, so it makes sense. But I did not notice. I did notice that Orange Cassidy looked like his back was just completely torn to shit, like he'd never touched ropes in his life. And that was kind of brutal to see. So we get the big heavies brawling up the ramp. Wardlow and Hobbs break a ladder in half, which is a fun visual. And then they did some fighting. And then Hobbs and Lee take each other out. They work over to the announce desk, and then they bump off the stage, and that's the end of them. Which I guess you got to get them out of the match somehow, but I thought that was pretty weak. Christian, as it cut back to the ring, and Christian has built a ladder fort. Starks interrupts and climbs the ladder, but Danhausen interferes and puts a curse on Ricky Starks, and then scampers off. In the wake of that, Wardlow powerbombs Starks off the ladder and onto a second ladder, and then Wardlow is able to grab the brass ring for the victory. And throughout the match, we get continuous shots of American Top Team for no reason. And that's the end.
First of all, American Top Team could go away forever.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be sad about that.
So many ladders, but so few things to hang up so high.
That's true.
Instead there needs to be a gigantic lifesaver.
It's so dumb. I hate it.
Gigantic gold lifesaver. Yeah, because it's just a stupid joke at Vince McMahon.
Yeah, but now they have to do it because Brody Lee died.
Oh my god. So Cesaro, by the way, another person that is gonna come in and gonna be amazing, but someone else has got to go, right? Like, he's not somebody that. There are these people that leave WWE, that get fired or leave on their own accord or whatever, and they go somewhere and everybody's clamored for them, right? Like Damian Sandow, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, he's amazing as the Miz's body double. Like, give him a chance. He was wonderful as the intellectual savior of the masses. Like, he's fantastic. He was robbed of an opportunity. Everybody knew it. He should have been given a chance." And then he went other places, and it was like a fart in church. Like, it was terrible. Not terrible, just meh.
Yeah.
And Cesaro's not going to be one of those guys. Cesaro can come in and do anything anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he's fantastic. He would be the face of the company if you let him be the face of the company. Same thing with Adam Cole. Adam Cole's not going to be a disappointment anywhere that he goes. It's how you use these people. But there's so many of those people.
Yeah.
That it's going to be scary. Anyway, the thing about Brody reminded me of that. And the brass ring. Actually, it was the brass ring, because that was the 2014 interview with Stone Cold where he said, that Cesaro is not a guy that's going to go out and grab the brass ring.
Mm.
Not that wasn't a McMahonism for a long time before that behind the scenes, but
right.
Anyway, so yeah, ladder match sounds good. The Orange Cassidy spots were great. Yeah, he's one of the biggest non, a lot of times when you think of the big stars in a wrestling company, you think of the main eventers, and I know that he's main evented a couple times, but this is a gimmick. This is a gimmick that is over, fantastic, all of these things. It's amazing. And I like Danhausen being with him. I don't love that there's like 6 people. Like I think that Orange Cassidy is fine by himself. And I think that Orange Cassidy with like one other person is fine. But like when it gets to, and the best friends, I was like, okay, it's Orange Cassidy and the best friends, and they're laid back and whatever.
Yeah.
And then
they just keep adding to it.
And they just keep adding to it. And now Dan
So
has
they just have this like dumping ground for all of the like quirky baby faces.
Yeah. And also, and then so is the Dark Order is a dumping ground for quirky people. And that's not what that original premise seemed to be. And I don't, and that you could never break up the Dark Order now, once again, because of Brody.
Yeah.
And
which is unfortunate because I just can't stand to see them now. I thought the Dark Order was great. That's a gimmick that's right up my alley. And admittedly, I have not been keeping up with the AEW extra content. Like I said, I don't watch the TVs, and I really fell off watching stuff from Dark and Evolution. So I haven't seen anything since really November, since that pay-per-view, which I can't remember the name of. But when Dark Order run in, this is spoilers for later, but when they run in at the end during the main event, and they're all just wearing like their streets and like Hawaiian shirts and stuff, I'm like, man, that's not the Dark Order. That looks like shit. Like, that sucks. I just don't like it. Those guys are all great, but like, I know the Dark Order was sort of, I don't know. I guess you could say that the Dark Order as it is sort of more in line with the like Super Smash Brothers gimmick that Uno and other guy whose name I have. By the way, anyone who doesn't know me, I have atrocious memory. I cannot remember names of stuff for the life of me.
What's my name?
Hold on.
I took it off the screen. I took it off the screen. What's my name?
Preston Watership Cup.
That was you. That was your name.
Damn it! I knew I was so close. Anyway, that's totally tangential, but yeah, I thought it was a good match.
Yeah,
got Wardlow where he needs to be. Everything else is fine.
Wardlow and MJF, fantastic story.
Absolutely, and what I appreciated about this match was that it wasn't over long. They didn't have a lot of like slow climbing the ladders and like building tension. Like they kept a pretty steady pace. And they got some good spots in, and it did what it needed to do. I thought it was great.
Oh, another faction that I can't stand.
Name all your factions that you can't stand.
Yeah, I mean, I can't name all of them because I don't remember all of the friggin' factions in AEW. Mm-hmm. But the Hardy family office.
Oh, the Andrade Hardy family office.
Well, no longer, but I'm sorry, spoiler, because you didn't watch Dynamite.
That's all right. I wasn't going to watch it anyway, but I'll catch a recap.
All right, spoiler to anybody for the next 30 seconds. So Andrade and everybody voted him out, and then they beat him up, and then Darby and Sting came out to save him for some reason, and then Jeff came.
Great.
So Jeff debuted.
I was pretty predictable. I think that's what everyone expected to have happen tonight.
But Matt Hardy with those people around him did not make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
None of that made a lot of sense to me.
Did the Hardys use the Hardy Boys music when they're not in WWE?
I saw that. I did not. So I was doing other things. So I saw that as well being mentioned, and I tried to, right before we got on the show, I tried to listen to it, and I couldn't find it in the scrubbing through the episode.
It's never occurred to me to wonder about that.
I don't know. I saw somebody say that's the beautiful thing about using stock music.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, I was just it doesn't matter. But
if they did, that's fantastic.
They should. If they don't, why?
Oh man,
it's just amazing pop everywhere you go.
Otherwise, it's just going to be some weird song that Jeff writes.
Oh my God, please don't do that to me. So following
Speaking
that,
of speaking
yeah.
of, what are we getting our opening song for this show?
Oh, as soon as possible. I'll probably have to stretch it a little bit because I think the sample that I sent you was about 5 seconds long.
That's true. That's true. Although, what did you think of this?
It's cute.
I made it in 45 seconds.
You played that?
Yeah.
That's great. I thought that was just something you downloaded.
No, I don't. You know that I don't play music. I don't play any instruments.
I don't know. It's only like 3 chords. I thought Dave could have showed you that. Or maybe Dave did it. I don't know. I have no idea. No, it was good. I liked it. That's good. That's great.
Um,
So yeah, so let's keep her moving here because we got a lot more to talk about. So we have a quick segment where Tony Schiavone introduces the new contract signing, despite the fact that
you've taken so many notes.
yeah, just I'm a note taker. Despite the fact that Tony Khan just stated in the past couple of weeks that they were going to slow down on contract signings, they have now signed Shane Strickland, who is a Seattle guy.
Well, you got to have Shane Strickland. I mean, if you're going to put a freeze on contracts, you have to make an exception for Shane Strickland, obviously.
It's his house. I don't know if you heard. Yeah, so they were just doing he was just doing some goodbye stuff at Defy Wrestling in Seattle that involved Darby Allin. I didn't follow it, but I watched a few clips. Seemed like everyone was really into it. Darby Allin got a hero's welcome when he came back to Defy. Anyway, that's it. He did some audience stuff and then they left. Now we have the TBS Championship. Jade Cargill defending against Ty Conti. I'm a big Ty Conti fan. I am a very small Jade Cargill fan.
Do you know how much shit WWE would have gotten if they, when they moved SmackDown to Fox, made the Fox Championship?
Yes.
So,
I don't like it. I don't like it. My understanding is that the TNT Championship was TNT's idea. And I don't know if
no.
I mean that was their first TV deal. They had to, I'm sure they had to acquiesce something. They have to concede something because they're a fledgling company at this point. So they got to give something to TNT.
Yes, absolutely. And now on Dynamite every week, the TNT Championship is defended on TBS.
Yeah, right. And you had to see that coming. But now, in addition to that, they've now established that trend. So anytime their TV deal changes, are they going to introduce a new television champion?
I don't know.
Yeah, I hate it, but it is what it is. I'm happy to have a second, I guess, women's title. I kind of would have preferred a tag champion for the women, but hey, it kind of kills two birds, right? Because becoming a champion is sort of the it feeds two birds. You're right. It doesn't know instead. Because Jade Cargill becoming a champion was sort of the inevitable conclusion of her build since her debut. But then also you don't have to take the championship off Britt Baker, so everybody wins. Yeah. I'm not huge on, I have to admit, I have this in my notes here. But I'll just jump right into this point that, like I said, I hadn't watched AEW in months. And so the last time I saw Jade Cargill was really when she was just starting to have regular matches. And I think that she was atrocious, just abysmal. But I've heard from people who I respect that she has improved. And so I was excited to see if that was fact.
Who are those people? I want names.
I'm not doxing anybody here. I'll give you them privately. I was excited to see Jade come out in gear looking like Jade from Mortal Kombat. I thought that was really good gear and it suited her well. She looked great. So we start. I don't know if this had any context to the match, but the match starts off with Jade kissing Ty Conti on the mouth as a distraction, despite nothing happening. And it doesn't really do anything. I thought that was I don't know what that is. Jade is a monster, so she shouldn't have to rely on that kind of horseshit. But it's what happened, I guess.
I don't get. There was like a year. There was like 1 year where women's wrestling was treated nearly equal to men's wrestling in NXT. I don't, and then all of those women went up to the main roster and were, however they were used. And then it was harder to, although the like 9 months that Bayley was by herself in NXT, she also had great matches, and it felt a little bit like Bret Hart, like carrying the company in like 90, 94, 95. But like, how hard is it? Just give the women stories that don't have to do with the title. Number one. So that it's not just one story per show. And give them time and let them wrestle and give them personalities and show, like, literally do not do anything differently. Just treat them the same way. Like, tell different stories, sure. Like, let that be organic to who the characters are. But I hate it. I hate when, like, the fact that they needed to bring in a second championship to give, because nobody can find other things for people to do, stupid. And
I mean, I wonder if they had to create the title, like if it was sort of like, we have to find something to do with this title, and it's sort of like, oh well, we're like building Jade, so we can just do that. We can have a whole tournament around it, and rather than like, we got to get Jade the title, so let's just create a new one.
I'm sure that there were a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But I would love to see more people featured.
Yes.
And more stars made.
Yes.
That goes for every company.
Yeah, absolutely. So the sort of the story here is that Jade is trying to overpower Ty throughout the match, but Ty is too quick and knows too much martial arts. And so Jade just can't get a leg up on her. We get several more cuts to American Top Team. And it was a really funny moment, even though in total throughout the show, we had already seen Paige Van Zant with American Top Team like 4 or 5 times. They cut to a shot of her, and Tony goes, "Oh, Paige Van Zant." Like he had just noticed that she was there. I thought that was hilarious. And Tony's a goober. You got a thought about that? No? Okay.
I hate American Top Team.
I know you do.
It's so stupid. It's so like, have you heard the story about how like Kevin Dunn has a job for life at WWE because his dad like saved tapes from a burning building or something, or a burning car?
No.
That's like the legend that like Kevin Dunn is like set for life because his dad saved a bunch of tapes or whatever. I want to know what like Dan Lambert did for the Khan family. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's all garbage. It reminds me of, it's one of the things that's most glaringly reminding me of like late stage WCW. Where it was just like, what the hell is going on here?
I thought at first it was great because Dan Lambert was sort of like a legit guy that you could have show up with his legit fighters, and they could like rip on the marks and like shout about obscure wrestling history and then like get chased off by somebody. But once you actually start like presenting them as a faction within the company and you get your own wrestlers involved and they're working matches, then I'm like, then you've kind of lost me.
Why is it ever? It's never good. It's never good. Listen, anybody, the several people watching this show, it is never a good idea if any of you ever become in charge of your own wrestling organization, okay, and you stage exhibition fights that everyone knows are scripted. It is never a good idea to bring in a group of legit combat sport athletes to have them shit all over your product. And then what? And then if they don't get in the ring and beat the shit out of everybody, then they look like shit and they can't go back to their sport. If they do get in the ring and beat the shit out of everybody, you've just completely devalued your roster. Either way, you're reminding every single person in the crowd that what you do is fake and what they do is real. Why would you ever do this? Having one person come in and do the thing that they're doing, right? The Ken Shamrocks, the Brock Lesnar coming back, the Ronda Rousey, whatever. Like, you have one person come in and they're like, you know, doing their hand in this thing, sure. But you bring in a group of people, whatever, and you just have, like, no, stop it. Stop it. It's never worked. It's never going to work. Stop having people come in and shit all over wrestling when you're a wrestling company and you need people in every other segment to suspend their disbelief. Knock it off.
That's how Ben sees it. It is very specific advice. You're right. That's
stop it.
But just
listen, PO box, PO box, whatever your name is. If you ever become the head of creative for a gigantic wrestling company, please do not do this.
Yeah, it's advice for everybody because you never know what the future holds. Anyway, so that's all hilarious. So the match is pretty evenly booked throughout pretty much the whole thing. Ty is able to get in a lot of offense on Jade. Jade is able to get off a few power moves.
Swords also make it unbelievable.
That's true.
Swords also make it unbelievable. Yes. Yes.
And giant cartoon hammers.
Oh God, yes.
So, but neither one of them can really get the edge on the other, which I thought was interesting because of the aforementioned monster booking that Jade is on. But Ty is, again, she's she's a legit fighter, so it is a little bit more believable.
I'm so sorry to completely interrupt this conversation.
No, you're great. You got feelings. It's okay.
Well, I just have to say about the hammer situation and the sword situation and all of this stuff, right? It's better. I don't know why. I'm with Georgia on this. It's better for a dead zombie that can shoot lightning sometimes out of his hands and bury people alive and stuff. That makes so much more sense than a gigantic hammer. And it makes so much more sense than a guy bringing a sword down. Like, I agree. Like, Drew McIntyre looks cool with a sword, sure, but like when he brings it in the ring and like swings it at people, like he could never hit anyone with it. If you hit somebody with that sword ever, like they have to bleed like a lot, like they have to get gashed. Oh, it's
you can't like Triple H sledgehammer with a sword.
No, that would be the worst maybe case scenario because then you'd have the point of the blade somewhere. Like, there's no scenario where that works, right? Like, he can only swing and miss. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. The hammer, like, again, there are things that Bray Wyatt did that worked perfectly, and then there was the gigantic hammer, which I think was Seth Rollins that brought it. No, he brought it in first.
Yeah.
Like, just stop doing stupid things.
Yeah. It is why we have we get 100 ladders and folding chairs. That's absolutely right, and it should be ultimately limited to stuff like that, right? Blunt objects that can be utilized, because once you start bringing in gimmicked weapons, actual weapons, then it's like even the
I think
sledgehammer, I think, is a stretch. Like you can sort of work
yes.
around it, and many of those sledgehammers are gimmicked anyway. But like you can't gimmick a sword and then have it still function as a sword.
You know what match I watched last night? Randomly, because I don't really watch old wrestling very often, but for some reason I just decided to do this. I watched Bret Hart versus Diesel for the WWF Championship from Survivor Series '95.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that match?
No,
It
I
was
mean
the first.
I'm aware that it exists.
It was probably the first table spot in WWF history. And it seemed very organic, and like Bret is trying to get back up on the apron, and Diesel like rams him off the apron, and he flies back and goes through a table in the center of the table, monitor still on it, right? And fans rushed to the barricades,
Yeah,
to check on him. And then Diesel threw him back in the ring and tried and put him in the powerbomb position, and Bret falls, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, he's dead. He went through the table. Like no one's ever seen this amount of punishment." And then Diesel starts to pick him back up again, and he like has a little bit of sympathy for him, and then he rolls him up and he pins him, and he wins the championship, and then Diesel's immediately pissed, picks him up and jackknifes him immediately. That mattered because it was one table spot, one time, whatever. You know what I mean? The Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon ladder matches were amazing because they were one ladder, and it was like a wrestling match with a ladder. Those things were awesome. Both of I know that this is a joke, by the way. I know that this comment is a joke, but you don't need 100 ladders in a ladder match. That doesn't. Why are you doing these things? Why are you doing these things? And for that matter, like I hate the idea of having like TLC pay-per-view and Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and I think TNA started doing that, right? When they had like pay-per-views that were all cage, like every match was a cage match in like the mid-aughts. It's terrible. Nothing means any. It's what I said earlier about the moves with the Young Bucks, right? Like when everybody does everything, nothing means anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hate it. I hate it. So yeah, I completely agree. Chairs would mean a lot more. That was the point of PG, by the way. The point of going back to PG from a storytelling perspective, other than the fact that they needed to do it for sponsorships, which I know is like the corporate main reason to do that. But when you went as far as WWF did in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era, there was nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
You had to go back. And now, when somebody does swear or somebody does do something, like when Becky Lynch busted her nose open, she became the biggest star in the world because there was blood on television. Like, that made a difference.
Yeah.
All of this, less is more, and then that makes more and more.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a very interesting perspective for the next match.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Is it Bryan Danielson versus?
It's not. But so let's finish this up real quick. Jade hits a frog splash. But it's it's like ultra safe, but she's like trying so hard to make sure it's safe that she looks like she's so rigid, and it looked really uncomfortable for everybody involved, especially her. So it looks strong, but it doesn't really do anything. The crowd were not really into this match. Compared to the other matches, they weren't dead. They were responding to stuff, but you really didn't get any big reactions. Jade obviously gets the win. There's really no, I mean, she's the heel, obviously, so you wouldn't expect a huge reaction, but in a crowd where everyone is a fan of everybody, it sort of sticks out when someone wins and there's really no reaction from the crowd. So they just cut right to a promo package for the next match. I thought this was a fine, serviceable match. Like, Jade didn't do enough for me to criticize. Like, her frog splash did what it was supposed to do, but she looked really uncomfortable doing it. But otherwise, like, most of the heavy lifting in the match was Ty Conti, and she's perfectly capable of doing that, I think.
Right.
For how green she is. But when you're working with Jade, who's just like moving a cardboard cutout around the ring, where can you go wrong? So yeah, I mean,
And you say I have opinions.
I just
You're just like casually trashing these people.
We've talked before about AEW's problem with pushing people before they're ready to be pushed, and Jade Cargill is like the dictionary definition of that, I think. That's my biggest criticism. But she didn't do anything awful, so I'm happy with it. So next match, CM Punk versus MJF in a dog collar match.
Not a fan of dog collar matches.
Yeah, me neither. No, I thought they did some stuff in this match that was pretty all right. But in general, anything like that, any dog collar matches or the four corners matches, anything like that, where it's like heavily gimmicked, is not for me.
Every four corners match has ended the exact same way for all of time.
Yeah. There's no other way to do a four corners match. So we have an interesting start where they hit Cult of Personality, but it gets cut off and MJF's theme plays and he comes out, and they sell this as mind games by MJF. But then some ominous music starts playing, and MJF is very confused. Fog starts to fill the entrance, and the ominous music transitions to Misery Conter by AFI, and Punk comes out in his old Ring of Honor gear to his old Ring of Honor music, which they immediately explained to the crowd, which I thought was a very good idea. I didn't get it.
Yeah, of course you didn't get it.
I've never watched ROH in my life.
Well, everybody's got to get the inside thing from 15 years ago, right? 17 years ago.
Well, yeah, and I didn't know. I mean, besides the obvious acquisition, I didn't know what relevance this really held to the match itself. Except that they just needed to get that shit in. But I mean, I knew it had to have some significance. I was like, there's got to be a reason that Punk is coming out to AFI, and so I was able to look it up quickly before they explained the joke to me. But yeah, it's meant nothing and, to me, and I'm sure it meant something to other people. It's a good nostalgia pop. Excalibur puts over referee Paul Turner as having reffed most of the most prominent dog collar matches of the past few decades. I don't know why that was relevant. I don't know why a lot of things that Excalibur says are supposed to be relevant, but I think he's a good commentator because I think he's good at covering stuff. He's really good at thinking on his feet, and maybe he was just filling silence.
Excalibur reminds me a lot of how I felt about Mike Tenay as a kid.
Okay.
I loved Mike Tenay for, so I don't know if you remember this. Mike Tenay, in like the heyday of WCW, would come out and he would only commentate the lucha matches.
Okay.
Or cruiserweight in general. He would only commentate those matches because he had the context and he was the encyclopedia and he knew everything about everything, right? And I love that. And I love Excalibur for that reason. It's another reason why I really liked Matt Stryker when he was in WWE on color commentary. And I thought that he would have been a good play-by-play guy. I don't necessarily think that he was a good play-by-play guy, but yeah, I like Excalibur. I think that he's a really good commentator. I think that it's too. Everything is too inside. Everything is like super fan centric, not super fan centric. It's fan centric for the super fan.
Yes.
and it's a lot. It's all a lot, and it's a little disheartening for anybody that's not like in on it.
Yeah. It's got to be difficult for a casual wrestling fan to watch AEW because it's 4 marks.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And it could be 4 more. It could just like a little less.
just a little less.
Just a little less.
You know, shoot. Oh, I'm again blanking on the name, but your man from UFC who got picked
My
up by
man from UFC?
just in general, just the phrase your man. The guy from, I think he was from UFC. He got picked up by WWE years ago and then got bullied by Bradshaw. Tope Suicida. Anyway, it was the same gimmick where he came in as a WWE play-by-play and he was like had this like encyclopedic knowledge of wrestling moves. But he also put on a show and it wasn't like, you know,
Oh, Mauro Ranallo.
Mauro Ranallo. Yes, I knew it was
Mauro
an M.
Ranallo,
Yeah.
the greatest play-by-play man since Jim Ross in his prime.
I think he had it exactly right.
I agree.
He knew enough to educate you, but he didn't like make you feel like you were an idiot for not knowing stuff. Anyway, so so we kick off
Ranallo,
with,
go.
So we got multiple spots of Punk attempting to pull MJF into him, and MJF escaping to the outside. Punk maintains control and humiliates MJF, who continues to beg off. While Punk is wrapping the chain around his fist, MJF counters with a power bomb into a pin, which Punk kicks out of, and Friedman takes control of the match. Minutes into the match, Punk's back has a clear chain imprint, which was gross. MJF punches Punk in the forehead with the chain, and Punk starts gushing blood, which I have to imagine was intentional, since that was like a big part of the build to the match, was Punk getting bloodied up on TV. I didn't necessarily think it added much of anything, but they do work it into the story of the match. In general, not a huge fan of superfluous crimson masks.
You take notes as if you are writing a dissertation about this, and at the very least, as if you are writing something specifically to be read.
Yeah.
And the thing that just got me on that is that you interchange MJF and Maxwell Jacob Friedman and just Friedman in the way that you would if you were writing this for other people to read it.
I didn't write it like that. I only write MJF, I think. Sometimes I write Max. But no, that's just coming out of my mouth. That's not how it's written. A lot of it is
either way.
A lot of it I'm paraphrasing, but thank you. I'll take the compliment.
Was it a
compliment? MJF uses a curse word to get the mic, and he tries to get. Oh yeah, he give me the fucking mic. So I wrote he uses a curse word to get the mic, and he tries to get Punk to say "I quit" to the fans that he has let down or something. To which Punk responds, "Eat shit, Max," which prompts the crowd to then chant "Eat shit," woo, woo, for about 30 seconds. Punk takes over the match after using the chain to pull Max off of the turnbuckle. Punk wraps Max's hand with the chain, and he starts giving him some knee drops on the hand, which I thought looked really brutal, and Max lets out some really awful screams, and that is sort of the big point of the match, is this now injured hand, which Max sells brilliantly throughout the match. Punk gets Max up for a GTS. Max counters by grabbing his forehead cut, and then he gets him in a sleeper hold with the chain. The announcers get over that Punk has lost a lot of blood and could easily pass out. Yes. Oh no, these are my notes that I took while watching. Yeah, so I thought it was a good note from the announcers there. I have a lot of notes on this match because a lot happens. Um, so Punk gets out of the sleeper hold using the Bret Hart kicking off the turnbuckle trick and rolls out of that.
Absolutely, because since he's come back to AEW, he has been playing in a Bret Hart tribute band.
So then Max starts selling his hand. So Max counters with his own GTS into Assault to the Earth. Armbar, but he can't get it fully locked in because of his injured hand. So they start trading submission reversals, and they take a minute to rest. Max continues to sell his hand like it's about to fall off. Even when he touches the ropes, he'll touch the ropes and then he'll like pull his hand back and like wince, and it's really, really great selling. Pretty subtle, but like constantly thinking about it. Punk wraps the chain around his knee for a Shining Wizard, which gets Maxwell Jacob Friedman to the outside. So Punk gets the chain around Max's face, to which the crowd chant, "You deserve it," which I didn't think was very nice. They walk around the ring having an obvious chat, and then Punk throws MJF into the steps. Punk goes back to the well for another chained knee strike, but MJF ducks it and Punk hits the steps. But this doesn't really go anywhere because the whole time Punk is recovering, Max is selling like absolute death, and Punk is able to take control of the match again. Punk calls for a GTS, but can barely stand because of the injured knee. Psychology. And he can't get up. He can't get Max up onto his shoulders. Chain gets wrapped around the ropes, which was really, really ugly. The chain gets tangled up in the ropes, and both guys have to work towards untangling it, which was absolutely hideous, and it felt like it took 5 minutes. Punk gets a pile driver onto the apron, but falls to the ground while he's selling his knee, which is a very dumb move, CM Punk. We get some shots of worried crowd members. Max kindly breaks to unwrap the chain from around his leg while he's lying in wait for Punk to give him an elbow drop, which is very nice of him. But then he rolls out of the way. Who saw that coming? He then rolls out of the ring. He pulls a bag from under the ring, and the announcers telegraph that the bag is full of tacks, and they are right about that. MJF hits a corner knee strike and calls for the GTS onto the tacks, but Punk bites his injured hand. What a heel. Punk and Max each tease brainbusters onto the tacks, but that does not happen, and Punk ends the spot with a roundhouse, gets MJF onto the turnbuckle for a Pepsi plunge, but Max gets out of that. Finally, Max hits Punk with a superplex onto the tacks, but they both suffer for it. Both guys are covered in tacks, but Max keeps selling his hand. And at this point is the big payoff of the match, where Max calls out Wardlow to bring his diamond ring. But shock and awe, Wardlow doesn't have the ring. Oh, he forgot it. He didn't bring the ring. So Max panics and walks straight into a GTS. Once he is down for that, now I remember, Wardlow pulls out the ring. He and Punk kind of have a moment where they match eyes. Then he just leaves the ring on the edge of the apron and leaves. And the crowd goes absolutely bonkers. Punk puts on the ring and shows it to Max. I thought he was giving him the finger with the ring on it, but that doesn't make any sense because that's not where you put a ring. Max spits in his face, and Punk punches him directly in the forehead for the 1, 2, 3 after the match. I should say, Max is tended to by the ringside medics, and they let the chain off, and Punk gives us a nice big Bruiser Brody chain swing callback to history.
It's not a callback. Oh my god. Okay. There are 4 more friggin' matches on this show.
Yeah, we can get that. This was listen. All right, so I'm gonna kick off. I'm gonna. My big note for this match is that it was way too long. I thought it could have been 5, even 10 minutes shorter.
Right.
There was a lot of slow build. Thought they could have got in all the major points and then built towards Wardlow way quicker.
Do you think that since he essentially had him beat anyway with the GTS, that the Wardlow finally handing over the ring was a little like less impactful.
I think that you needed Wardlow for the distraction finish. But having but like having done that, I think the ring was more of a symbolic. I mean, that was for the crowd. That wasn't for Punk.
Right.
And more importantly, it was for Wardlow.
Like,
it gets Wardlow over huge. It helps to really cement the build towards the feud with Wardlow and Friedman.
so here's okay. But
Psychology wise, I don't think it was necessary to do the ring.
psychology wise, what if this happened instead? What if he lost it? Right? What if he was looking for it and he couldn't find it and he was all distracted and he turned around into the GTS and he lost the match? And then Punk celebrated, and then Wardlow went in the ring and helped MJF up, and MJF like pushed him or whatever, or like, and then Wardlow picks it out of his pocket and smiles and puts it on and he hits him. Then like Punk won by himself. Punk didn't need to put the ring on because that wasn't his story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, he did get hit with it, but like so has everyone for the last 3 years. But Wardlow can do that himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would have worked easily well. I think that the way that they did it was probably the most poetic way. Because it's like someone finally gets over on MJF. Wardlow shows that he's turning on him like definitively. I think it worked the way it did. I just wish the match was shorter. I think you probably could have done it in a way that made more sense within the psychology of a match.
But Punk would have gotten over on him anyway by himself.
Yeah, but it's more of the like it's the turnabout because Max has relied so heavily on having the ring to win his matches and his feuds that even though Punk I think did have him beat, I think that it was more of like a him getting his comeuppance rather than losing the match.
Yeah. I just would have liked to have seen the babyface turn with a clear act of aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And Punk winning the match, walking out with his hand up high, Wardlow like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry," picking him up, looking in his pocket, seeing that he actually, knowing that he actually had it the whole time, smiling, and then hitting him.
Yeah.
Like, would have given him his individual shine by himself.
Yeah.
Not that there was anything wrong with the way that they did it. I just
no.
I think that the same result would have been achieved both ways.
Yeah,
but
and now you got to pay to see Wardlow hit him. So I think I would have been happy with either way. I think the way they did it was perfectly fine. But I think your way also has equal merit. I'm gonna both sides this one.
Coward. Number 9, Britt Baker.
Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa for the women's championship. I didn't really. I mean, I took notes on this one, but I can race through it because really, I was just writing down everything that I saw. It's basically, I mean, it's a Britt Baker match. You've got Rebel and you've got Jamie Hayter causing distractions and interfering. I'm looking through my notes for anything that like really sticks out. I think if this is the match that I think might be the next match that I made this observation, so I'll leave it there. But I mean, oh no, it is this match. Oh no, I was right. It is the next match. So yeah, I mean, it was basically just a Britt Baker match. Lots of distractions, lots of interference from Rebel and Jamie Hayter. My one observation on this match is I'm really into Thunder Rosa. I thought she looked real sloppy this match. I thought she was like I had missed her getting like hit in the head or something, because right at the start of the match she was just kind of like tripping around and stumbling, and it just seemed like, I don't know, maybe your heart wasn't into it or something.
Right. Well,
It was overall, it was just like, it felt like a really slow match to me. Like they didn't, it was like as if they were like going through water. Like they kept a steady pace, but the pace was slow. Um, I wasn't super impressed with this one. Um, but which makes me sad because I was excited for it. But yeah, basically the finish of the match is so we get the tombstone from going back and forth. Rosa hits the tombstone, gets a visual pinfall. So this is sort of the big finish of the match is Rosa hits a tombstone. Rebel distracts the ref. And so Rosa gets the visual pinfall, but they don't do a count. Rosa gets up to break that up, and she hits Rebel, who sells into the ring. And then the ref starts tending to her, trying to get her up and out of the ring. And while that's happening, Rosa it's into pin to attack Rebel. Finally, Rebel is down in the ring, and while the ref is tending to her, Jamie tosses the belt into the ring, and Rosa gets a curb stomp but kicks out of it. Baker makes another attempt at a lockjaw. Rosa reverses it and applies it herself. So Rosa gets the lockjaw on Britt Baker, but now Rebel is distracting the ref a second time. Rosa applies a choke. Baker taps out. So we get another visual victory for Thunder Rosa. And then Rosa spears Rebel through the ropes and finally takes out she and Jamie Hayter. But when she is climbing back into the ring to finish the match, she gets another curb stomp from Britt Baker, which delivers the win.
now you left all the R's out. You said Bit Baker.
Excuse me. I'm sorry I made fun of you.
That sounds like a great main event match.
Like, could have been.
Yeah, the story of it sounds like it would be a great main event match, not number 9 on a 12 match card.
Yeah.
So everything has everything in it. Like that's a 17-minute match when we just saw a 26-minute match and there's about to be a 21-minute ridiculous match coming up next. Like, so much.
I would observe similarly in this match as I did with the other women's match, that the crowd seemed less interested in this than the other matches. And I don't know if it's just that like the women's matches didn't have the same weight as a lot of the men's matches did, or if it's the big names that they have now compared to the sort of more up and coming names in the women's division. They're not as
It's a mix of everything.
they're not as tenured as a lot of the men that are working the main event matches, or if it's because of their spots on the card that these are just the troughs of audience energy levels. I don't know, but
I think it's a little bit of all of it.
Yeah, it's a shame because I'll say the same thing as I did earlier. I mean, with Ty Conti, these are both great performers in Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, and it just seemed like the energy just wasn't there. It was
So
just kind of a title match to have one on a pay-per-view because they only get 4.
All right. So next one is match of the night.
Is that right? Match of the night. I
don't know. I'm asking you.
I would probably tend to agree. Danielson versus Moxley. So this is sort of hyped up as sort of a dream match. They never use that expression, but the promo package that they show kind of includes, shots of some indie stuff. And they sort of get over that these guys haven't wrestled in a long time. JR mentioned that the last time that they had a match was in 2013, and that was like only their second match. So this is sort of like a long time coming thing. My first kind of observation, this is superficial, but I hate Wild Thing as entrance music for Jon Moxley.
Same.
Great.
Same.
So on the other hand, I love Bryan Danielson as a heel.
Same.
I saw a lot of people did not like that they turned him heel to feud with Adam Page. And it wasn't the most organic transition, but
No.
I love his heel character, and I love that they kept him on it afterwards.
Although now you'd have to imagine that he's a babyface.
I don't know. You would have to, but I guess that sort of remains to be seen.
Well, now you'd have to imagine that something very strange is happening, because why are two of the biggest names that they have a tag team? It does. All right, continue, because I'm ruining the match.
No, you're fine. So yeah, I'll try and go through this also pretty quickly. So we start off with some great mat wrestling, and they go outside of the ring and they do some stuff. They sort of like wrestle each other over the apron and onto the floor, and Bryan Danielson immediately scurries back into the ring. And it's just his great heel work of being like slimy and like win by any means, sort of. Bryan gives us kicks the back of the head and then quickly backs off and does some cheeky jumping jacks before ducking through the ropes. Again, great heel work. So we just got a lot of like really stiff working between the two of these guys. I'm trying to see again if there's like highlights so I don't have to describe every single chop. But they're just really kicking the shit out of each other. Get vibes of the series that Sheamus and Cesaro had, where they're just really laying into each other. Only it's Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. Jesus Christ. I'll just drop that point. So Mox gets opened up, which I don't really care about. It's sort of hard to tell if this was intentional. So I don't know what your
Definitely
opinion.
intentional.
You think it was?
Definitely intentional. The whole point of the match was that if I'm gonna team with somebody, I need to bleed with them first.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah,
build. So
definitely intentional.
That adds a lot of context. It looked like it had happened sort of accidentally, as they seemed like they bumped heads while they were brawling on the outside, and they didn't really draw a lot of attention to it, which made it seem like it was an accident. And then right afterwards, they were both bleeding. But Mox looked more like a blade job than Danielson did. So they're both bleeding. Mox is bleeding buckets. They take a breather. Mox delivers a series of headbutts. We get a paradigm shift into a big lariat, so they can take another breath. I thought this was nice. At one point, Bryan gets up on the corner turnbuckle, and Mox runs up and gives him a back rake. Big, huge, rosy back rake, but he's got bloodied hands, so it kind of leaves some streaks on him, which I thought was pretty nice, although they don't really draw attention to that either. We had a dragon sleeper from Bryan, but Mox gets his foot on the ropes, and then they sort of go back and forth with these submissions and foot stops, and they're just really just evenly matched throughout this. Bryan gets on a triangle sleeper. Mox reverses into a triangle pin. Mox reverses the triangle into a pin, and gets the win sort of out of nowhere, right? And then Bryan Danielson loses his mind, challenges the ref, and then they start brawling from out of nowhere. And by nowhere, I mean backstage, William Regal arrives. This was one of the few things that was spoiled for me before I watched it, or else I would have done laps around my house. I was so excited. But I didn't see any of it. I just saw like his face appear in conversations about it, and made me very excited. And his presence was awesome. He was just looking great, and it made me immediately excited to know that William Regal is in a company that is not afraid of people working super stiff. And hopefully we get some good work out of him. I don't know if he can wrestle.
Can I tell you what happened tonight?
Yeah, please do.
So he's going to be the manager for this tag team.
Yeah, that was
obviously.
Yeah.
And basically they came out, they had a squash match as a tag team. And then he cut a promo. He thanked Tony Schiavone for helping him 25 years ago, 29 years ago, whatever it was. And then he said that, you all know who I am still because of Bryan Danielson, because for 20 years in interviews, Bryan Danielson has told every single person that would listen, every time a microphone's been put in his face, that I was that I helped him, and he was the one that, like, any of the reason why all of these younger wrestlers look up to me is because of the things that Bryan Danielson said.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, any wrestler that comes and asks me for help, I sit them down for about an hour and I tell them all the things not to do that will save them 10 years of their career. And he said, Bryan Danielson is the greatest wrestler in the world, and the wrestler that I could never be, but should have been, but could never be because he doesn't have the personal demons that I had. And then, so he was like, so when, I got fired 2 months ago and I've just been sitting on my couch completely not involved with anything. And then I heard somebody mention that he mentioned my name on Dynamite. So I figured I would watch. And I saw that he was wrestling Moxley, and Moxley is a crazy son of a bitch who he and I put each other through hell for an entire year in FCW or NXT or whatever. And he was like, so I needed to come and do this and whatever. So it was a very good, heartfelt promo. Kept talking about how he's not long for this world. He's 53. He's 53, and he knows that in 12 years he's going to be in a wheelchair with his wife pushing him out to the table watching for supper.
It's horribly sad that that's probably very accurate.
Yeah. So anyway, I love Steven Regal. Lord Regal, whatever the hell his name's going to be. I believe his real name is Steve Regal.
I don't think his real name is anything close to that.
Oh no, his real name is Darren something.
Yeah. Well, they were calling in the pay-per-view, they were calling him William Regal. So I don't know if they changed that. But that was also Jim Ross, who it takes him 6 months to catch up to people's new names. That's
true. What his name is Darren Matthews.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew it was Darren. He was Steve Regal in WCW. I don't know what he's going to be in AEW. It doesn't matter. But anyway, that's great. I think that Danielson and Moxley as a tag team, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you have so many guys that you want to be in prominent positions that you need to do something interesting. I have virtually no interest in watching Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley as a tag team. Moxley just got clean. He looks the best that he's looked since he was in WWE before he got injured and came back. When he came back all like swole and was doing the stuff where, like, like when Roman got leukemia and he turned heel and that last bit before he left.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, like, the muscular and bulky from like beer weight Jon Moxley was always like hard to look at for me because he looked so unhappy.
Yeah.
Even like when he was having the time of his life in AEW, he looked super like not well.
Yeah. Agreed.
And when he showed up and looked like, 26, 2016 Dean Ambrose, coming back from rehab. It was with less hair. It was awesome. And he looked rejuvenated and happy, and like that's fantastic. And I don't know, maybe he needs like a lesser thing and to be in a tag team, and it helps Brian as well, because if Brian's going to be around full time but doesn't want to wrestle a full schedule and wrestle as hard as he normally does, then being in a tag team makes sense. And who else would their partners be? Sure.
And maybe this is something that they both wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it does seem like a step down for both of them. But
it is
just like you said, I mean, there's 100 other amazing performers in that company, and not everyone can have a top spot all the time, and it gives them something to do. It occupies, they both occupy one spot, so it opens up a little bit of room for other people in the singles division.
What I feel like is weird. I feel like Hangman earned the title before all of these other guys came in.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if it was between Omega and Hangman being the face of the company, and if it was like Jericho, Hangman, Cody, Moxley again, and Jericho, Hangman, Cody, and Omega, like, I think that Hangman being the top guy makes a lot of sense. The minute that you brought Punk and Danielson in, and Cole, it was like, should, like, does Hangman really, like, is he the top guy? You know what I mean? And I know that everybody like wants him to be, and I do too. Like, I'm a huge Adam Page fan. But like, is it a situation like when like Jericho was champion in 01, 02, where it's like he's the champ, but he's not the top guy. He's not the top draw. He's not the top. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, would it have been better? The story was there. He needed to become champion. He's going to continue to be champion for a while, but should he lose it and then have a feud with one of these people where he earns it back and becomes a bigger star, and then is on that level?
Yeah.
Like, I think that Brian being his first feud and winning that first feud with Brian, and the way that he did, I don't think that it made him as much of a star as beating Kenny Omega did not have the same gravitas to it as beating Brian Danielson. I don't know, just my thoughts.
No, I kind of agree. He doesn't feel as important to me as he should.
Yep.
And Brian Danielson does.
Yep.
I would say I'm not huge, because I do agree that it's sort of just feel like a kind of a weird choice to pair these guys up together. But that being said, I'm comfortable seeing where it goes. I love William Regal, and it's a logical choice to have him be involved. The flip side of that is it's sort of like you've created another faction. Kind of. I know they really are into managers, and I like the managers too, but the idea that Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson need a manager is a little silly, as much as it makes sense for it to be William Regal if it has to be anybody. It seems a little bit like a forced choice, but also Regal coming in and sort of like slapping sense into them about it is sort of, it justifies it a little bit, but
that's the other thing. But that's the other thing, right? Like, you have like the two of the best talkers in there, and they have a mouthpiece. That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense.
It's very weird.
They also don't tend to use their managers as mouthpieces as much as a traditional manager would.
That's true. That is true. Which then feels like the manager is just there just to give somebody a job.
Yeah, and like in kayfabe, you could say like he's going to help them sort of like work more cohesively as a
Yeah.
team. It doesn't have to be, he doesn't have to represent them or be their mouthpiece or anything else, but like function more as like a training role, which like you don't see. But yeah, like for television, it's like, what are you really getting with William Regal except like a third awesome talker?
Yeah. I don't know how long this is gonna last.
Yeah.
I've always thought like I personally do not think that Tony Khan should ever be on camera.
He is such a goofball.
He is yeah. Every time he's on camera, I think that he is it may just be nerves. So like I don't want to actually say anything bad about a man, but every time he is on camera, I feel like he is the most disingenuous person that I've ever seen. His tears look fake. His excitement looks fake. Like, I do not believe him when he's on camera, and it might just be that he's bad at it.
Yeah.
So,
he talks like a CEO who's doing public speaking, like he's not a performer.
Mixed with a 14-year-old boy.
Right.
It's a very weird thing, and I do not love it. I think that the easiest thing to do, which I would have done 3 years ago, is have some sort of authority figure, not like a bad guy, not like a, literally like William Regal is the perfect example of it. The William Regal NXT general manager situation was like the perfect way to have an authority figure now.
Because he wasn't like directly involved with angles, right? He would just come out and like enforce stuff and make matches.
Make the matches. Somebody would come back to him, and it's somebody that has like gravitas, that like that would be management, that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And literally, like, it would have been so easy at any point in the last 3 years to have somebody piss off the Bucks or Omega, not even as bad guys, right? Like, not like they're the heels trying to like, put the boots to somebody because they have all the power. Like, not even doing that bullshit. Just literally like the heels did something terrible to them, and then the Bucks back in the beginning when they were the baby faces, and now you would do it whatever way. Just being like, oh yeah, you know what? We're gonna have a cage match next week. I signed it. Like, we're doing that. And then other people going like, how come they can just like book their feuds? Like, that's messed up, right? And then have there be an announcement that the executive vice presidents are not allowed to mess with the TV show. They're not allowed to mess with the booking of the angles, of the booking of the matches, and that they're gonna get, and that there's gonna be like a commissioner.
That's right? sort of kind of happened, except it was real life, and that person was Tony Khan.
But it would have been so like Arn Anderson would have been amazing for that, right?
Yeah. Like, it kind of goes to your earlier point, which is that AEW is a little bit too inside baseball. Everyone knows the corporate hierarchy and like what everyone's positions is, and so to introduce like a television authority figure, it's like everyone knows that's baloney.
Yep.
And but like, it's wrestling, it should all be baloney, but like, you've presented this as you've pulled the curtain back too far, and now you can't do stuff like that. Like,
while I'm on my things that I hate about wrestling.
Yeah, please let's try and move on so we can get it wrapped up.
I would like to just say this. The next one, I'm pretty sure that the next one it was a fun 6-man tag match, and there were a lot of cool spots, and the good guys won, and everybody was happy.
All right, that's that.
But okay, so if I never ever in my life again see the lights go out and the lights come back on and somebody in the ring, it like I will have still seen it too much.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. If it's a character like Aleister Black, Malachi Black, whatever, could do that, right? If Bray Wyatt comes in as a name, he can do that. The Undertaker can do that. Kane can do that. Like, if that's not your character, like, why the hell is like I don't know. Like, why would Keith Lee be able to do that, for example? You know what I mean? Like, so this random ass person is in like cahoots with the lighting people and the production people. Like, stop it. Stop it. If you can do that 7 or 8 times, then you could probably hire you could probably have Tony Khan say publicly, like, I'm gonna have Arn Anderson or Dean Malenko or William Regal
Yeah.
be the commissioner and be my mouthpiece and
Yeah.
keep order.
Yeah, you'd really have to choose I think any of those guys would work for that, but it would have to be someone with credibility for doing something like that. You couldn't just grab anyone, pick anyone out of a hat. An interesting point to your observation about the lights is I've heard that Tony Khan really hates the teleporting wrestlers, and yet that's like all they do. I don't know what happens in Tony Khan's mind, or if I'm just fed a lot of information, but it just seems
Adderall.
like, yeah, yeah. So we have the next match is our trios tag match: Matt Hardy, Andrade El Idolo, and Isaiah Cassidy, who I love, versus Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Sting. Despite being the TNT Championship titles holder, Sammy comes out not last, which I thought was interesting, but I guess the titles aren't really a factor in the match, so it doesn't matter. Also, Darby has this weird vignette that he has to play, which is now his gimmick, I guess. So it makes for Darby to come out last, and also he's probably way more over than Sammy Guevara is. But I don't know. I my one sort of like purist streak is that I think that anyone with a title should just default come out last. Yes. So we got Darby makes a beeline for Andrade. That kicks off all of the action. There's a lot of brawling to start off the match, and then eventually the action makes its way into the ring. There's a great sequence which has Darby Allin doing some very fast opposite corner splashes to Isaiah Cassidy and Matt Hardy, as Sting is just kind of holding a chair and watching it happen. I thought that was really funny. Darby Allin is so fast, and Sting just observing. And then we get a great springboard something from Sammy. It happened so fast that I didn't see what the move was, but he's great at working the ropes. Yeah, the super fast paced matches. We get more shots of American Top Team, and this is probably the only time in the entire show that is relevant, since I believe Scorpio Sky was challenging for the TNT Championship. But then I also thought that Darby Allin was going to challenge for the TNT Championship, so I'm not sure what's happening there. Dang Cutie, hello. Thank you for joining us. So we have Isaiah Cassidy hurls, just pegs a chair at Sammy Guevara when he's up at the top turnbuckle, and then we get some interference from Mark Quinn, who I didn't even realize was there. They finish that sequence with a tornado DDT, which is what I thought, but then I heard them talking about a gin and juice, so maybe that was the gin and juice, or maybe I missed a gin and juice. Then we cut to Sting and Matt Hardy, who are in the crowd, and you can see Andrade and Darby are also there, but in the background. This is really awkward portion of the match where they're in this like cleared out area in the crowd, but there's this like teeny tiny like home tripod with an HG camera set up like in the middle of the floor, and the guys are having to like awkwardly work around it. Did you catch that, or did you see this match?
I did not know. I did not see this.
Yeah, so that was there for quite a while, and they're just throwing each other around, whipping each other into barricades, and meanwhile there's just this weird tripod that's just sitting in the middle of the floor and no one's moving it, and just having to like pretend it's not there but also not disturb it. So I don't know what that was about. We get an interference from Butcher and the Blade, And then we switch back to the entrance ramp where Private Party has set up some tables that Guevara is sitting on, and Isaiah Cassidy is about to do a move. But Sammy gets up and he reverses the whole thing. He climbs up onto the stage set, and we get a Spanish fly off of the set through the tables, which looked amazing and was super safe looking. But it was really, really great stuff. And that was pretty much that for that sequence. We cut back to the crowd where we see that the camera lingers way too long on the Butcher and Blade, who have set up a pile of what looked to be 3 or 4 tables by one of the like maintenance entrances in the crowd, like where the players come out, I guess. And so eventually Hardy and Sting brawl their way up above that, and they start fighting. Andrade and Darby are fighting. He pushes Darby off and then inexplicably just kind of passes out onto the pile of tables, and then Sting dives onto Andrade and through the tables. The crowd chant, "You still got it," which, yeah, I guess. They just listen, audiences hand that "You still got it" chant out like free candy. And it means nothing to me anymore. Hardy brings Darby Allin back to the ring. They seem to be the only ones left. Cassidy and Guevara are. Oh, Sammy Guevara had a really brutal looking bruise on the back of his leg immediately after doing that Spanish fly. So I don't know if that happened because of the tables or what, but that took them out. Sting and Andrade are out. So it's just Hardy and Darby Allin left. So Hardy attempts to do. Hardy gets Darby's neck through a steel chair and attempts a twist of fate. Darby counters it into a Scorpion death drop and then hits a coffin drop, which gets him the win. Awkwardly, Matt Hardy does not stay prone during that. He kind of like tilts his shoulder up, so Darby Allin whiffs the coffin drop, but still gets a 3 count off of it. And then we get sort of a reluctant celebration with Sting, Allin, and Guevara as we cut to a promo package for the main event. Yes, perfectly good match.
All right.
Did a great job of hiding Sting and Matt Hardy's shortcomings. A lot of praise on the internet for Sting for jumping through a pile of tables at the age of 62.
Yeah, praise.
Yeah, I mean, that's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It's not nothing. It's not necessary either.
It's not necessary. The guy can barely move. And so if you've just got one big spot for him to do, sure, you got to justify him being there at a certain point. And Matt Hardy's kind of the same. Like, he's super stiff because of his lower back surgeries.
Yep.
And so, yeah, they did a good job of covering up for the two of them. The huge highlight of the match is Sammy Guevara's Spanish fly. That was great stuff. Yeah. Cool. And then so we jump to our main events. Adam Cole challenging Hangman Adam Page for the AEW Championship. Adam Cole comes out wearing Spartan armor from Halo, which people were very excited about. I thought it was lazy, but
why did you think it was lazy?
Because it was really just shoulder pads. Like, he didn't come out like dressed as like Master Chief or something. He was just like wearing vaguely reminiscent shoulder pads and then took them off. I just was like, why do it? But you gotta just Adam Cole's a gamer, baby. You gotta pop the nerds.
There you go.
The announcers take a quick second to put each other over during Adam Cole's entrance, which is interesting. JR makes a big point to talk about how he thinks that the AEW title is a new belt. He starts asking, is that a new belt? That looks like a new belt. Tony Excalibur sandbag him. And JR is like, well, they must have had it cleaned because it looks really great. The fans start the match by chanting, "Let's go, Adam," which I really like. And then Tony explains the joke because they're both named Adam. Ben.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Preston.
Yeah, thanks. So the strong start here. Paige gets an early advantage, and then Cole takes over and shouts, "What you got, Hangman?" And Paige just completely lays him out with a big right hand. I'll note that although we were talking about this a little bit, and Hangman Page doesn't necessarily feel like a totally credible champion to me. He still feels like kind of like the same as like when Kofi Kingston had the championship a few years ago, where you're like, yeah, I'm glad that you won it, but you don't seem ready for this. However, he is portraying himself as stronger and more confident here than I was expecting. So that's movement. That's something. They brawl to the outside, and then I note that I think every match on the card except possibly Ty Conti and Jade Cargill went to the outside.
Of course. How could you have a match and not go to the outside?
Yeah. It was a big part of every men's match. I think Britt and Rosa only went to the floor very briefly, and it kind of fed into the finish. But there was a lot of brawling and stuff around the ring, and I don't know. It's like you said, it's like if everyone's doing it, then it means nothing. It's not exciting when people go outside of the ring if it happens in every match.
Yep.
Yeah, Adam Cole gets control of the match. There's a lot of shit talking from Cole, which gets Paige fired up. And he gets a Panama Sunrise for his trouble. Take a break. Paige starts selling his wrist. I'm not sure why, but he did sell his wrist for a minute, so maybe he just jerked it because I don't think that actually played into the match at all. Paige hits a power bomb onto the apron, follows it up with a moonsault, throws Cole into the ring to set up for a buckshot lariat, but Cole rolls out. Paige gets cut off, encounters with a Liger bomb, at which point JR quizzes Excalibur on the difference between a Liger bomb and a power bomb. And which Excalibur explains, and then JR kind of does the like, that was a test and you passed gimmick. And I'm not sure if JR does know what the difference between a power bomb and a Liger bomb is. Then
JR definitely knows the difference between a Liger bomb and
so
can I just say that I love old, fed up, not loving all of the indie shit Jim Ross.
Yes.
I love it so much.
I like it to a point. I think he can bury the show a little bit sometimes, which is
sometimes the show deserves to be buried.
It's
why you shouldn't do it. You should not do that in that position.
No.
But like he's, yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, with a guy like Excalibur there, do you need JR? That's, like, no. Is he really bringing anything besides existing?
It's nice to have a familiar voice.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that
you're not happy with Tony Schiavone?
I mean, Tony Schiavone's not a familiar voice to everybody.
I guess that's true.
Like to more,
casual fans.
Like Jim Ross was there for 8 or 9 more years in the main mix.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that is what it is. I really like Tony Schiavone's actual announcing commentary, but I think that Tony, like, if Tony just was the Mean Gene character, right? Like, if he just did the backstage, like, if you got rid of Alex Marvez, who is the weakest link of anything, if you got rid of him and Yeah, if you got rid of him, I think that would be great. Um, and and have Tony do that, and then just have a 2-man booth. I don't necessarily think that I would have JR be the Wednesday night every single week. Like, I really like Excalibur and Taz on Rampage,
Mhm.
or Dark or whatever it is, whichever one that they do. I really like it. I think Taz is a fantastic color commentator.
Oh my god, they're hilarious together.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I really like 2-man booths, as does Jim Ross, and I think that those things, you know, like it depends. It depends on what happens, right? Like they have like 5 shows. They have so many shows because they're doing the YouTube shows as if they're full shows, and they're hiring like real commentators to do those and probably paying them a bunch of money to do a YouTube show. And it's all very interesting to me, and I really want to know what's going to happen with ROH. Like, um, I do not assume that ROH is going to continue their Sinclair affiliate deals. That would be really weird. And then, of course, all of the titles that ROH would need to add, right?
Yeah.
Like the WJAR NBC affiliate in Rhode Island title, and the
Yeah, that's interesting. I think if I'm correct, I think that Tony Khan has said that ROH is gonna like basically stand as it is. Um
right. But I'm sure that they're not going to have the TV
oh
distribution deal.
no, he'll have to no, but I'm sure they can work around that in some capacity.
They'll
Um
get something, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
But
At this point, I think Khan can negotiate his way into a TV deal somewhere for them, or just do YouTube. That's perfectly viable. Or like
it
stuff on
is.
Fight TV, like TNA does.
Yeah, I think that whatever he ends up doing will be good. I think that splitting some of this love, right? Like, and then if you're giving yourselves an opportunity to have people go somewhere else, but like really separate it.
Yeah,
Like really don't have people mix from AEW and ROH if
they
you're
got a
going to
lot of
do it.
they got a lot of ROH guys anyway that they could just kind of like reestablish, you know, with a higher paycheck, I guess. I've seen a lot of people talk about treating ROH as a feeder league, and I don't think that is a good idea.
I mean, so a lot less people know what ROH is. However, it's basically the same audience because all you did was give all of those hardcore fans their own national television show,
Yeah,
like to love. So I think that the million AEW fans that there are, um, the 1 million AEW fans that there are also know what ROH is.
yeah,
At least well over 500,000 of them.
hmm
So I think that and you have the publicity of being able to promote it on AEW television. So I think that having ROH be its own standalone thing makes sense and is a fantastic idea. And I think that WWF should have done that with WCW a long time ago. But by the time they had it, WCW was a nothing. Like it was a shell of its former self, and like
yeah,
how were you going to do that and whatever. Like ROH is lucky that it never got to the heights, so it's never, you know what I mean, like it's never been that thing to worry about. If you restocked it with people, like if you had Punk go be the star of ROH, which he might want to do, there's a really good chance that he'll want to do that. He's already doing publicity about it and mentioning it and doing his ROH music and whatever. Like
yeah,
if you had Punk go do that and not show up in AEW and be the guy in ROH and have, Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson or whatever be the guy in AEW, I think that there's a real viable option there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you sort of mentioned this already, but my next actual point was JR sort of points out the lack of psychology in the match. He says that neither athlete has any clear strategy. They're not targeting any body parts or anything. They're just going strike for strike, and that eventually one of them will just lose. Which I thought was interesting, and I'm not sure if that was an over it JR slight on the match, or if that was meant to be sort of like a complimentary, like they're just going at it, these guys. Excalibur sort of counter argues that gives the champion advantage because, like, if his body fails him, then he still keeps his title, sort of. I don't know. It was a weak point, but I thought it was interesting of JR to point out that there's not really any clear psychology in this match.
Sometimes, so this is the issue with analyzing everything during the match instead of storytelling, right? Like that's the thing that everybody hates about WWE is that Vince wants his announcers to tell stories, damn it. And in AEW and the way that everybody wants to do it in JR, right? They want to call it as if they're calling like baseball on the radio.
Yeah.
Where like you can be blind and completely be in on what's happening. And when you're talking, when you have three people and they're all talking to justify their spots and they're all analyzing what's happening and not necessarily telling stories, but really trying to break it down as a sport, a lot of shit doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And if you let it go and you focus on the story of the match, you kind of forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't spoil. It doesn't hardly spoil the match for me. I think you could have made the same point without directly indicating that. Oh yeah, no one does have an intention here. They're just fighting, but it's not a fight. It's a match. I don't know. You could have just skipped that and made the same point about them going blow for blow. So next we have one of the big highlights of the match where Paige attempts a moonsault, but Cole counters it with a super kick to the face, and it looks awesome. And it just drops Paige right out of the air. So then we basically just get a lot of teases for, we get a lot of super kicks, a lot of attempts at lariats and Panama sunrises. I did see a "what bar" sign in the audience, which doesn't mean anything to you, but it means a lot to me as an OSW fan. They go blow for blow, big counter for a lariat into a crossface, which is very smooth. Jarrett commends Adam Cole for illegally holding on to a submission to the count of 4. What a dirty heel. JR, I mean.
No. You want to hold on. You want to hold on to the count of 4.
No, right. Yeah,
You
sure.
want to do.
Yeah, right.
You should be commended for that. Use every moment that you have.
Yeah, a good person would take advantage like that of the rules. So Paige, I'm just teasing. Paige hits a tombstone, only gets a 2 count. This is the, I believe, second or third tombstone of the night. And it has just been a move that is tossed out. I know that's a thing in AEW. A lot of people use the tombstone pile driver, and it just is sort of really settling into me that is just a regular move that people have in their arsenal now. It's not a match finisher. And
it's
like
terrible.
I feel like an old person.
It's terrible.
And it's not fun.
Yeah.
That was kind of a downer for me. I mean, it's hardly the first finishing move that's been transitioned into a more, like a transitional move.
Listen, as much as people complain about the DDT, right, being like the most devastating thing ever when Jake Roberts did it, and now it's just a transitional move that everybody kicks out of and people don't even go for the pinfall on. It's a front face lock where you fall backwards. It's not. It's it's a transitional move, and there's a million different ways to hit it, and it's whatever.
Yeah.
The tombstone pile driver is the Undertaker's finish, and like one of the most protected things that there ever was. It sucks.
Yeah. I do take that point. Also worth noting as a counterpoint to that, but although I do agree with you, but just as a devil's advocate point, he was using the tombstone pile driver at a time in WWE history where everyone else was still doing pile drivers as transitional moves, and it's just a pile driver but different. And so yes, all your points are valid, but like it's sort of like a slight variance on a normal pile driver and there's already like 3 or 4 commonly used types of pile drivers that are generally, like, since the 90s treated as transitional moves. And so logically, why would the tombstone be any different? It's only different because it was the Undertaker's move, right?
That's enough.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Um, name the pile driver types. I don't have a good memory. Ben can. So the one where you the pulling pile driver, is that what Mick Foley called it, or is that what it's traditionally called? Where you grab and kind of fall into it rather than picking the guy up.
Yeah. What's it called?
I said pulling. That's what I remember it being referred to as, but I don't know if that's the proper name for it.
Yeah. I mean, so there's the abridged pile driver, the cradle pile driver, the cross arm pile driver, the package pile driver. These are like, yes, it is the pulling pile driver, by the way.
Great. That's the only one that I could have even come close to naming. I'm bad at remembering move names.
They're all like, first of all, I don't like pile drivers. I don't like things where I think that people get dropped on their neck way too much in wrestling still. There is a whole Wikipedia on it. It's useless information. There's a reason why MJF is like one of, if not the most beloved, hated, talked about wrestlers in this company. And it's because he tells stories and has a personality and like, you know, he's essentially the Miz, but he looks like he could kick your ass a little bit more. And that makes all of the difference. If the Miz had just like a little bit more like thicker of a body type, a little more muscular, right? Then he would have been his generation's Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the fact that he looks like, you know, that like he was from the real world and everybody looks at him as somebody who's super unathletic, that nobody could get behind it, like in the way of him being like a top star. And MJF doesn't have that problem. But it's about the story that they tell revolving everything. And although I do think that I'm the Miz and I'm awesome or whatever is the dumbest thing, is a very dumb catchphrase, and that was when I was like, oh, these catchphrases are getting dumber. But yeah, that's just MJF does not care about the moves and dropping people on their head every day and doing all of these things. You don't need to do that stuff. You don't need to do it. People are going to get hurt. More people are going to get hurt. Like, just because you can do something safely doesn't mean that you should do it, because it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it safe in the 90s too, and how many guys had their careers significantly shortened, you know. I think WWE was right to put a hard limit on stuff like that.
I would rather see, there's like the jumping pile driver, the spike pile driver. I would rather see a tombstone pile driver to the knees.
It's way safer than any other type of pile driver.
Yeah, I would rather see a tombstone pile driver to the knees than any other type of pile driver.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them. That fucking reverse Hurricane Rana that people do now, that like Pac popularized.
Yeah.
is where people like you flip somebody over and they land on the back of their head. Don't do that shit. Stop it.
Yeah,
Stop it.
there's a lot of stuff like that going around.
I hate it.
I'm
The
not super
Panama Sunrise is a pile driver. That should not happen ever again. A flipping pile driver is something that like those.
How do you feel about the Canadian Destroyer? That's kind of a similar type.
That's the same thing. Yeah, no, I hate it.
Is it the same move? It is the same move.
Yeah, it's the same
Yeah,
move. He
you're
just
right.
jumps
You're right.
off the rope. Yeah.
Yeah, anything like that is rough. I'm not huge on the Styles Clash while we're talking about it either. For kind of the same reason, but also there's no smooth transition out of it.
It's the pin.
Yeah, but there's no smooth transition into the pin even. It's like super clumsy. I just don't like it. I don't care for it. And then, guys like neck themselves doing it. So, I mean, and that's on them, but even so, like, just don't do it. I'm not huge on it. I just don't think it's it's a super clunky move. It doesn't seem worth the amount of trouble that you have to spend setting up and then getting out of it.
Well, for him too, like the phenomenal forearm is so much cooler.
Oh yeah, way better.
Not that I don't know how long he'll be able to do that for.
So we get let's see what happens next. We get Paige gets fired up again, hulks up, and we get some kick exchanges, a very fast and smooth deadlift suplex, and then a neck breaker looking maneuver. I didn't quite catch it from Cole. We get a 2 count off some kind of a move. Stuff was happening faster than I could write it down, so I missed a lot of the quick moves here, but we get a 2 count, which is the cue for Red Dragon to get involved in the match. We get a Panama Sunrise on the floor, and everyone can't stop talking about the gross sound that it makes when a body hits the mats on the floor. It still only gets a 2 count. And Red Dragon is pacing on the outside. We get a ref distraction, allowing for a low blow and another Panama Sunrise. Excalibur decides that the match is over, but no, still only a 2 count off of knee to the boom, I believe is what it's called, off the back of the head. We get an attempt at a buckshot lariat, but Cole counters with a bunch of super kicks. And Red Dragon bring over a table. Cole sets up for a Panama Sunrise onto the table, but is countered into a Deadeye through the table. I'm not sure why that's not a DQ, but I don't know. Maybe they just don't do DQs for stuff like that in AEW. Page sells his leg. The Dark Order comes out, and there's a big brawl, and then everyone leaves. I've already talked about how disappointed I was in seeing the Dark Order, because they just look like a bunch of slobs now. Bunch of fucking goofballs. Page rolls Cole into the ring, hits the buckshot lariat, gets the 1-2. No! Cole's gets the back of his hand on the ropes. Page ties Cole's hand up with his belt, which for some reason the ref allows. He starts delivering a series of super kicks to Cole's face, but Cole still manages to counter with his own super kick and frees himself. Super kicks all around for everybody all the time. Page is ready with one last kick, which drops Cole. Page pulls his knee pad down for a boom of his own, then a second buckshot lariat, which puts Cole down for good. Very little fanfare, probably because the show was 7 hours long. And the audience really
think the show is longer.
The audience really seemed to lose their steam partway through this final match. So I think you probably could have cut a couple of the matches, at least from the pre-show. It was like 3 or 4 matches just on the pre-show. And you maybe could have gotten a little bit more out of the audience when your big champion retains his belt after what for all intents and purposes was a pretty decent high-paced match with a lot of personal history. Cole is passed out after being thoroughly beaten, but Page picks his hand up and then puts it in his own and shakes it against Adam Cole's will because he is a babyface. And he has to shake your hand. It's a respect thing, then. And that is it. That's the end of the show.
And you have now joined me in the present. Because when we started this, it was 10 p.m. for me. And now it's 10 p.m. for you.
That's right. Very nearly 3
Holy
hours.
Crap. So, how long do you usually stream for?
2 hours.
Okay.
Thereabouts. Unless, something... If I can't get to a stopping point, I'll go longer, but I shoot for 2 hours normally.
Nice.
Yeah.
So overall thoughts, what do you think of the pay-per-view?
I thought it was fine. AEW is sort of they put so much into their pay-per-views because there's only 4 of them, and I appreciate that there's only 4 of them, but I always finish the show feeling like it could have been a match or 2 shorter. You didn't.
You know what never did that? The NXT takeovers.
Yeah, and they only had they only had 4 or 6.
They only had 4 a year, and they did it, and
they were just 2 hours, right? It
was 2 hours tight. Yeah.
And I think what I would take away from an AEW pay-per-view is you don't have to get everything on. You can run a program on TV, and they do run programs on TV. And if you have a big match that you're building to, by all means, make me pay for it. Jade Cargill versus Ty Conti is not a big match.
But
who cares? But
now you're talking about, well, you only have one women's match. You have 11 matches on the show that are men's and only one women's match.
I mean, I'm not nitpicking in the sense of like get rid of one of the women's match. You don't need 2. I'm just saying
I'm aware of that. They're not telling the story that's good enough to be on the show, right? And my God, do we need a 6-man tag before the end of the night, like that with a bunch of random people in it?
Yeah, I mean, you could have not had that on TV also. I mean, on the pay-per-view also. The 6-man tag could have been on the brass. I mean, the Face of the Revolution ladder match is sort of like the gimmick for the show. So you kind of got to have that. Punk and MJF as a blow off. You got to have your big title. Your women's champion should be represented, even if it's not a big match. She should be represented on there, but
it should be a big match. If you have 4 shows a year, I'm falling asleep. My glasses are falling down. It should be a big match. There should be no excuse to not have it be a big match.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a shortcoming on their point, that they aren't building enough into some of their women's matches. Some of their women's matches are fantastic and they're great. They're sort of, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because I think they're at a disadvantage because so many of their women are fairly new to the business. They relied pretty heavily on Japanese wrestlers when they started, and then the pandemic hit and they lost them, and they had to kind of like cobble together a presentable women's division in the wake of that. And they did the best that they could, but now that's not an issue, or it shouldn't continue to be an issue. A lot of those Japanese wrestlers are coming back. The women that you have been working with for the past 2 years should have been raised to that level of being able to put together a longer term program. I don't know exactly why that doesn't seem to be the case. I know with Jade Cargill, they're still just kind of padding her resume, but like that doesn't have to be a pay-per-view match.
Yeah.
And that was just a for instance. I certainly don't have a problem with having 2 women's matches on the pay-per-view.
I think you do. Anyway, so.
But yeah, I mean, totally presentable, perfectly good show. I mean, their pay-per-views are improving steadily as time goes by. They could temper the length a little bit.
As could we.
Sure. Maybe next time shoot for 2.5 hours instead of almost 3.
Oh man.
Listen, I thought we kept on it for coming into this without any type of structure.
Absolutely. I know that Taz would get mad hearing somebody say this about anyone else, but you took copious notes, my friend, and whew.
Yeah.
Whew.
Well, maybe next time I'll have the benefit of some extra time to be able to whittle them down a little bit. But this was a pleasure. I'm happy that we finally did it, and thank you, P.O. Box. I appreciate you hanging out with us,
dude. I agree. Preston carried it all. In a very large notebook, possibly multiple notebooks. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Let's Talk Wrestling. What topics do you think we'll cover next time?
I wouldn't begin to guess. I just wanted to get through this one.
Steve Austin returning?
Ooh, probably, yeah. I mean, the next big thing is
Brock Lesnar.
Is Roadblocks, right? So I don't know. Maybe I'll do Roadblock. Maybe something else. I don't know. Only time will tell. I don't necessarily want to set a precedent for reviewing every single pay-per-view.
I don't either. I'd like to talk about topics though, because that was fun as
topics would be good. Getting a topic in, maybe one or two just topics of discussion would be cool, and then maybe aim for WrestleMania.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Preston.
Thank you, Ben.
It's your show, so I'll let you.
Yeah. Ben, what's the next thing for Come Waste Your Time? You got anything on the docket here coming up?
We have the Friday night 9 p.m. Come Waste Your Time Wasters extravaganza. I don't know. The 9 p.m. Friday night group hang.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. And I stream video games at Captain Stick Figure, CAPT Stick Figure, all one word, on Twitch. Monday nights and Wednesday nights, except for this coming week, which I am taking off. But you can peep that if you are interested in my face and not Ben's face.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, for now, that is pretty much all I have to say. So, oh yeah, I don't know if I have. I guess we'll see if that works or not. I have shouts out enabled on my stream, so I guess we'll see what happens. Yeah, that's correct spelling. Anyway, thank you for that shout out, PO Box. And that will be it for us tonight. So thanks very much for hanging out with us, Ben. It has been a sincere pleasure, and I will see you on the next one, my friend.
See you soon.